Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll start with public comments for agenda items. Agenda items only. If there's nobody for that, I'm not going to read the whole. Nope. For agenda items? You're talking? Okay, hold on one second. All right, so all speakers will promptly identify themselves, a maximum of 30-minute period, limited to 3 minutes per speaker. No district employee or student may be commented upon or identified by name or situation. Questions asked by the public will be referred to the appropriate staff members for reply at a later date and time. Questions regarding investigations will be referred to the superintendent for consideration and later response. All written statements shall be given to the district clerk. Over to you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sebastian Wisa. I'm a senior at the high school, and I'm also a 2024 IB diploma candidate. And I'm here today to talk to you guys a little bit about IB. So IB is a 2-year, the diploma program at least, is a 2-year rigorous program that we all go through. This year we have around, I want to say 17 people for graduating this year with our IB diploma. And I just want to say, like, this is a rigorous program, and we've gone through the past 2 years together. Like, it's a tight-knit group. And just a couple things I want to touch upon when it comes to IB. Like, there's this thing we do, community activity service, where we participate in things in the community and we write reflections upon that. And then we also create a community service project. And that's 17 full community service projects. And then another 15 from the year ones that they're going to be starting. We have my community service project. I'm updating one of the rooms in behind the choir room, converting it into a recording studio and organizing our sheet music and digitizing that. So a lot of good things coming out of that. IB is a high intensive writing program. Everything is about writing when it comes to IB, and that preps us for the next level. We write a 4,000 word paper called our extended essay that only diploma candidates do. This is a rigorous paper that we write over 2 years on any topic we like. I decided to go with a history topic about a genocide, the Assyrian genocide that happened in the early 20th century. And again, this is not a topic I would have came across in any of my history class, even my IB history class. But IB gives us the opportunity to research what we like and learn things that we wouldn't have learned had we not inquired into it, right? Also, IAs, internal assessments. This is a research paper in every single class, IB class that you take. In IB history, I have to write a research paper on history. In IB physics last year, I had to write a science research paper on a physics topic of my choosing, any physics topic, right? And that's in every one of our classes. And again, these are rigorous papers. We have the support to do them, but they prep us for that college setting, that research and paper writing that we're going to have to do in college.
Sebastian,
and that also
30 seconds, all right?
Yeah. Oh, of course. And yeah, that preps us for college. That gets us ready for writing college supplements, right? I had to write like 10 college supplements, 200 words each, but that wasn't a problem because I write essays regularly. So just want to say IB preps me for college, is a rigorous program. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you. All right, anybody else? Great.
Hi, I'm also an IB diploma candidate. My name is Riley Pittman. I will be graduating this year.
Mic on?
So to start...
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay, yeah. So to start, I was a very challenged student when I was younger. I was in extra help for math classes and extra help for reading classes from 1st grade up until 8th grade. And it's fun because I see my 3rd grade teacher here today, which is really nice. So hi, Mrs. Harris.
Hi.
And I always heard my friends in middle school talking about which AP classes they would be taking in high school, which is crazy to me now because they're like 13-year-olds talking about courses they'd be taking as 17, 18-year-olds. Anyways, I'm a natural planner, and seeing all my friends planning these things made me want to become a planner as well. And knowing my history with academics made me very nervous for challenging myself in the future. 8th grade my year got cut short because of COVID, and because of that, I was able to do my work on my time and do my own organization. And I became very diligent in this. IB, like Sebastian said, you have to do an extended essay over the course of 2 years. Many of my classmates were great with this, naturally. And I was able to adapt to this and adopt this diligent behavior by just setting deadlines for myself, hard deadlines. And for every class you take, you have to do reflections and internal assessments, which are just long, lengthy research papers and reflections on how you have grown as a person and as a student. I think about my first day of IB very often. I went home and I had a meltdown because I didn't know if I could handle it, because I'm fresh out of extra help for math, and now I'm taking an IB course where I have to write an essay about math. Like, it's just ironic. And I got nervous. But I went to the second day, I talked to my parents, and they were like, you can drop it. But I didn't. And I didn't drop it because I agree with what IB stands for. And I believe the skills I'm obtaining through IB is amazing for any college skills you need to know or any life skills you need to know as well. I think IB has made me more professional, honestly. And at the end of the day, we are just students learning in a more challenging way, but we are learning through experience and through challenges, which I know other courses may offer.
20
courses,
seconds.
okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. And other courses like AP or honors don't offer it the way IB does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? For agenda items, right?
I'm sorry?
Agenda items?
Yes.
Yep.
My name is Scott Stuber. Should we spend taxpayer dollars on a public school curriculum commissioned by the United Nations, made in Europe, and at odds with the principles of the American founding? Through the IB program, that's exactly what we are already doing. Across the country, a growing chorus of parents and concerned citizens oppose IB because of its conflict with America's founding principles. Students in the program study a standardized IB curriculum taught by an IB-trained teachers and take standardized tests graded by either IB examiners or by IB monitored teachers. IB isn't cheap. The application candidacy fee for a school can total as much as $23,000. Add to that the cost of teacher training, annual school fees, $10,000 for a high school, student fees, test fees, and more. It adds up. What do parents and other taxpayers get out of this outlay of funds? A curriculum crafted in Europe with a decidedly non-American and non-Judeo-Christian outlook on the world. IB now operates as a non-governmental organization of the UN's Economic and Social Council. IB is not merely to impart knowledge or teach thinking skills, but rather to develop citizenry of the world with universal human values. What are these values? Not necessarily the values of the students' parents or of faith, but those embodied in the UN Declaration of Human Rights. IB advocates for the redistribution of wealth amongst its citizens and nations, population control policies, as well as military disarmament. They teach students about subjects like toxic masculinity and man-made climate change. In the IB philosophy, national sovereignty must yield to the solving of global problems. This should never be the case. There is nothing wrong with the AP system that we have used for many, many years. Our educational system should not be at odds with the Declaration of Independence. We should not be using taxpayer dollars for the IB program. Yielding the decision of what we teach our young to anyone outside of our country is not what me and so many of our vets have fought for. Thank you.
Could you, I'd appreciate if you could provide some source material for where you're getting that information. Just
You can actually,
send us.
you can go to the IB website and see this.
I've been on the IB website plenty.
Well, I just got off of it. So,
And I'm not sure where a lot
could
of those.
you offer something in dispute?
I'm not trying to have a conversation. I'm just asking if you could provide, you could just provide
The
some
IB
background
program
content
was,
to some of the
IB
claims that you're
program
making.
was initiated in Switzerland, was it not?
So this is not for discussion right now.
Yeah, I know. I'm not trying to have
Okay.
a
All right.
discussion. I'm just asking if you could
But this
provide.
is, Chad, this is not for discussion. You can follow up afterwards if you want, but let's not have this
Yeah,
conversation
but
here.
it's also not, it's
It's-
also not okay for us to allow misinformation to be publicly.
It's
given.
public comment right now, right?
It is.
But
So then
hold
you're
on.
openly disputing what I say as
this
disinformation.
is, sorry, this is not for conversation right now. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alana Sofko. I am here to talk about the way the IB program was discussed at the last board meeting. I wanted to point out that the source material for what I heard of as the downside of IB, when I went to look to find it, found a lot of different Christian nationalist opinion pieces written a decade or more ago that talked about a lot of things we've just heard about. The way it was talked about in this room, however, and I just want to make you all aware because maybe you don't know, and I know that you are all decent people, but replete with anti-Semitic tropes and racist dog whistles, Marxist, socialist, globalist. I don't think that's an appropriate way of talking about the material here. Now, the materials that I found also spoke to that, and it made it very clear when you read through those dog whistles and tropes that the objection by Christian nationalists of the IB program is really rooted in it's too Jewish, it's not white enough, things that just don't seem to make sense for what's actually being taught in this program at this school. So I did absolutely take offense at the way it was discussed. I think if you don't agree with it amongst yourselves, there's gonna be a way to talk about that without signaling racism or anti-Semitism. There's also gonna be a way to, particularly for those who are concerned with property values and tax assessments and school rankings, to understand that pointing fingers in witch hunts is going to be way more expensive than an application fee for the IB program. The IB program can provide a year's worth of college credit for our graduating seniors. I mean, in my house, that's worth, I think, $70,000 for a single year's tuition at the school my elder child attends. For me, that's a rate of return of about 9 times over of a single year's tax.
30 seconds.
And so I just wanted to say all of those things. So thank you for allowing the opportunity.
Anybody else?
So first of all, good evening, and my apologies for being late. So I actually probably missed some of the public comments. So if I'm repeating something that someone else has said, my apologies in advance. I also want to address what happened at the
What's
meeting.
your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Ruth Fröhlich. I'm a resident of Somers.
Okay. And this is for agenda items, right? So IB is on the agenda?
It's about the IB.
Great.
For sure. So I think I don't want to go into how the meeting was conducted last time because some really rude and unprofessional tone was used. I think we all know that we shouldn't be exposed to that as a community. That was very disappointing to hear. I hope we don't see any more of that. I also sent an email to the board on this topic, as the board knows, and I never received a response. I'm disappointed because I believe last year, some of the candidates for B.O.E. in fact raised the issue of communication with the community and how it is selective. So I was disappointed to see that the selectiveness, I guess, apparently still persists, but maybe in respect to different people. In any case, I think it's a sad day when in the United States of America we have to stand up and defend the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is a document that was, as I'm sure many of you know, was in part penned by Eleanor Roosevelt, who also advocated its adoption in the United States. So this document is actually has been ratified by the United States. And you know, I wasn't born in this country, and I know this, so I hope that everyone who was born should know this. I should hope that they know this. I think I also, someone else spoke about how there was conspiracy theories and anti-Semitism in the source that was used in the last meeting. This last meeting was actually quoted, this passage was quoted verbatim, taken from a website, from an article that was written 15 years ago by someone who doesn't even live in Somers. And this article doesn't have any footnotes, any sources. It is a series of ideological statements, and you can call them, it was Christian nationalism, you can say they're anti-Semitic, conspiracy theories, you name it. There's a lot of unattributed statements. It is a particularly dangerous and irresponsible thing to do for someone who sits on the Board of Education, to peddle this kind of material without having actually verified any facts that might be behind it, and also to mislead the community into thinking that this is actually the words of someone in the community. It is not. It was words of someone else who was born in another state and who doesn't live here, and who is also a self-professed Christian writer. So if we are talking about the dangers of indoctrination and dangers of ideologies, what is this going to be? Is it, if I don't like an ideology, I'm just going to peddle my own ideology? This is not what the trustees should be doing. The Board of Education, if anything, should be here to promote facts, data-based decision-making, and here to help the community clarify the important issues at stake and the complex issues that are being discussed in these meetings. These issues are complex. They're not always easy to understand. It takes a lot of learning. So is this what we have to look forward to? I thought that the board was going to heal the community, not divide it further. So I would like to see the board do that. All the trustees, live up to your campaign promises. Is this how you're going to heal the community? By just bringing in what you believe in and never mind what anyone else in the community feels? Are you going to actually listen to all the community and actually seek out the views? The community is right here. Please ask them. Or was this a plan all along? Thank you very much.
My name is Alexander Wisa, and I am a IB diploma candidate student. I'm a senior right now, and I just want to say that IB has benefited me so far this year and through junior year too, because it has allowed me to take like subject-specific curriculum classes, like for example IB Business, which has then allowed me to focus because I want to study business in college. So it has allowed me to focus my vision and then help me get into like colleges and stuff to help me specifically with what I want to do. So I think in that aspect it's beneficial, and also for we're just like a tight-knit community, so we're able to use each other's ideas, bounce off of each other, and that has helped us learn more, helped us share ideas and be more open to other ideas. So I think it's just benefited us, and especially on top of this, all the writing we're doing that's helping us prepare for our supplements. It's just benefiting me for college and for future work. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
My name is Aiden Duffy. I'm a senior at Summers High School, and I'm a part of the 2024 IB Diploma Candidate Group. I'd like to say that I believe that IB has helped me become a more efficient writer, 100%. It has impacted my ability to get work done better and balance my time more than I ever thought I could possibly do. I love the opportunity that the IB program has given me. I love the doors it has opened up for me. And I would really just be so sad if this door was closed for so many people who could really benefit from this. A whole year's worth of tuition can go a long way for a family, and it's really sad when I just think about maybe this opportunity won't be around forever for every single student who might be interested in trying to push themselves. Like how I, in the beginning of my junior year, was willing to push myself further than I've ever pushed myself academically, just to see if I could do it. And I feel like everyone should have this opportunity to see how far they can go. All right, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Kayla Castillo, and I'm also a senior in the diploma program. One of the main reasons that I started IB was because it's more like with the writing, like I'm not really good with like standardized testing, so I thought it would be different and like a way that I could still challenge myself with my courses and leading into college without having to do AP, where I didn't think like the testing would be like very beneficial for me. And along with that, like through IB, we've also become such like a tight community where like projects are together and we can like focus on like, I don't know, like just everything is like your classes are like smaller and more focused, and I feel like it's just more beneficial. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? Last call. All right, thank you, everybody. Now we'll move on to the central office report. Faculty voices reading.
Thanks, Nick. I'll go ahead and start that off and then hand that over to Liz as we go ahead and get the evening started. So approximately the next 25 or 30 minutes, we're just spending a little bit of a conversation regarding the kind of specific work that our faculty has been about. And as we know, we've talked about some of the, not just in Somers, but across our country, the negative impact that COVID has had after we've come out of that, when some of our readers now, in particular at the intermediate level, these were students who were coming out at the K-1-2 level with distance learning, learning with masks, learning in separate spacing. And so our team has been diligently working on how can we come back, support those kids to make sure that they can go ahead and catch up. There is a catch up here, and that's what the team is working on. And then we just thought we'd come a little bit this evening to follow up from a board visit that we had a few weeks ago to kind of go see things in practice. So I'll go ahead and hand that over to you. So thank you, Liz.
Great. Thank you so much. So first off, I just want to thank the board again for coming to visit SIS last month and spending some time in our wonderful classrooms. And a big thank you to this SIS team for hosting us, for your students hosting us, and letting us be a part of that classroom experience. So tonight, we're so glad that you could join us because it gives a bit of voice and a bit of life and a little narration to the wonderful things we saw happening in classrooms. So I just want to draw us back to last board meeting. We were talking a bit about our tiers of instruction and support for students. And our tiers of support we consider in a Tier 1, a Tier 2, and a Tier 3 system. So just to recap that for a minute, when we refer to Tier 1 supports, that's the general experience, the classroom experience, the instruction and the things happening on a daily basis in the classrooms for students. At the Tier 2 level, this is when students may need a little extra support. That support might be provided in the classroom setting, or it might be in an AIS setting. Typically, this support is with a smaller group of students, a little more specialized to help pinpoint where those gaps are in the students' learning. And then we also have a tier 3 of support. This is once again a little more intensified. This is sometimes also maybe a little more specialized program. Usually these services are provided by an AIS provider or a special educator, and it's a small percentage of our students that require this tier of support. We also have data teams at each of the buildings that help us kind of decide on those supports, and I'm going to let Ms. Belger and Mrs. Miller talk a little bit about how we decide upon those supports for students.
So our teachers work very hard in determining what students need and what's the best course of action for each student. We have data teams that meet, and we look at multiple measures throughout the course of the year, plus historical data on our students, how they've been doing, to really target instruction to see who needs that extra little bit of support in a targeted area and what would be the best ways for us to address those needs for each student. And that's what we will see in Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction. These data teams meet throughout the year, constantly looking at students' performance, student need, so that it's a fluid program. We have building level services where students get the targeted instruction when they need it, and then when they don't need it, they're back in Tier 1 in their classrooms. So it's a process that I think a lot of people have a lot of interest in and work hard to make sure that we provide for each student.
And I just want to thank some of the team members here were part of our reading review committee starting last spring. And that committee, once again, was just a meeting of the minds to help us take stock of our current reading practices, areas where we had strength, areas where we felt we wanted to seek more learning and more support for our students. And we were able to then use that information also to help inform our professional learning this year. And already have made some changes in regards to the type of supports we're offering children. So for a moment, we're just going to stick with that Tier 1 level, the general experience for children. And before we get to that, actually, just to remind ourselves, too, that under the science of reading, when we're talking about reading instruction, we really want to provide instruction that comes in kind of two sides, or two buckets, I always say. One being explicit instruction for building students' phonemic awareness skills, building their phonics skills, building their fluency, and this is explicit instruction. And then the other component of instruction being that knowledge building, students building their background knowledge, building their vocabulary and language so that it in turn affects their comprehension of text. So that's what we refer to under the science of reading when we're looking at the components that make up the instruction and supports for students. So with that said, like I said, we'll focus in on Tier 1 for a moment. We were able to visit classrooms across 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And we have Mrs. Roslin, Mrs. Harris. We were able to join your classroom for your explicit instruction on phonics, which is the Foundations program. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about that program and supports for students?
Sure. And Liz, if you don't mind, we'll just share the mics across the table. Thank you.
So thank you guys for visiting. We enjoyed having you in the classroom. So when you visited us, you saw Foundations in action. The Foundations program is a K-3 program that provides all students with a foundation for decoding and for spelling. So it's a 30 to 35 minute lesson per day, and it focuses on some of the different pillars that you just talked about. So I was just going to describe those different pillars in the way that we address them. So we work a lot on phonemic awareness. So at the K2 level, they work a lot on sound awareness. And when you get to the 3rd grade level, we start to work on more of spoken sentences, which is sentence awareness, and then also how words are broken into syllables, so syllable awareness, and also morphology, how we change words by adding suffixes, how we talk about the differences between words, and it really helps students be able to understand the language. We also work on phonics through word study. Those are our structured lessons that teach them about different phonics skills. We work on high frequency word study, which are those words that don't follow the rules, that appear in text that they need to know. There's a fluency piece built in. Fluency is very, very diligently taught at the K2 level, and then we work on building that fluency into sentence chunking and also bridge it over into regular text in 3rd grade. We do a lot of vocabulary work in Foundations, and we'll talk about how we did that in the lesson that we taught. There's also a handwriting piece, so it connects the sounds that we're teaching to cursive writing in 3rd grade. And we also do spelling dictations, where we're able to assess through different modalities how the students are taking what we're teaching and decoding and able to transfer it into encoding for their spelling. So I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Harris, and she's going to talk a little bit about the lesson that we taught together and the pieces that we use to teach those different parts.
That's right. So it is a K-3 program, so there's different components to every lesson. Should I move this closer? Different components to every lesson, and by 3rd grade, most kids know all the different pieces. Every lesson starts with a sound drill, so there's usually a leader who comes up to the front and will say the letter, say the sound. All the vowels have several different sounds, so we attach keywords to them, the digraphs, the trigraphs. Just that repetition really helps them to master it. So that's the way it starts every day. There's usually a skill we focus on. So the day you guys came in, we were focused on exceptions to closed syllables. There's always some kind of vocabulary work, and there's a word of the day. So that day, I think we did scold, right? And scold also followed the rule that we were teaching them. It was an exception to the closed syllables. So working on that, we also, other vocabulary workers are sound-alike words. Those are homophones. And trick words, right? So trick words are the words that don't follow the rules. We do a lot of dictation, so that's when we may dictate sounds and they have to repeat it and then show us either in their notebook or on their board. Sometimes we build the word with tiles, shows all the different ways to make that sound. Sometimes we'll give them words and then we'll listen, repeat it. They know how to tap it out to break it down into all its components and then either write it or build it on their board or book. So they're very familiar with all of that. The dictations also serve as an informal assessment for us, because after each unit there is a formal assessment, so helps us to prepare them for that. That's it.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And just a reminder too, Foundations is a program that we have in place for all students, grades K through 3. That's our direct phonics instruction. And then Mr. Jacob Ellis, we were able to join your room for a little extension to that reading block where we saw that whole group and small group work happening. Can you tell us a little bit more about that reading block for children?
So if you were walking into any 3rd grade classroom, you're going to see that component, and then you're also going to see the additional part that addresses the language. And the language comprehension skills and strategies are important as well, and those are driven by the New York State standards, and you can find them on our scope and sequence. The day you visited, what I had chosen to do was character traits. I was on my 2nd or 3rd day of character traits. And the way you teach this skill is through modeling through whole class instruction, working together. They'll do partner work. They'll work in small groups, and then they'll eventually work independently so that they can demonstrate the skill that they learned. The day you visited, I was reading a story called The Paper Bag Princess, which is a fan favorite. And we read the story, and what we did afterwards was we then looked at the main characters and what were the character traits that we learned about them. Now we're going to go back and recall those vocabulary words that we've been learning over the past couple years. In a 2nd grade classroom, they may be learning those words, and now when you're going to go into a 3rd grade classroom, they're going to take it a step farther. We're going to find those words, and then we have to find text evidence. They're going to have to go back into the story. What was the example that supports the character trait that you chose? So what they did was they partnered. They did their pair share, which is really important because for some children, they may be stuck trying to come up with those words. They can work off of each other and share with each other, and then it also helps them give some time to really think about that. After that, we always have a share out. That could be orally and then also writing it down. And then we followed that up with an activity where they had to demonstrate that independently with both in partner work or independently, what their evidence was and the character trait. You would then take that skill that you're working on, that language component, and it's going to carry you through the year at different points. You're going to either pull them into a reading group and work on it in a reading group so that they're practicing it. You're always going to be going back to those skills throughout the year and building upon it. Eventually, you're then going to be going into reader response writing and going back and doing that. Being able to find the evidence is very important, and it goes back to so many different language skills that we use that it's the beginning part of them being able to find, go back into the text, and then utilize it and apply it in their different writing. They enjoy it, and it's great because you have every part. They're either working together, they get to work in a group, then they work individually, and then you work with them as well. And they'll eventually be doing it on their own independent text.
Great, thank you. Ms. Salmon, thank you for joining us with that 5th grade lens. Can you share a little bit about that Tier 1, that reading block, then how it develops for the 5th grade level?
So some of the things that you heard Kaylin mention, things that we also will be continuing 5th grade. So what I was doing with my students was a whole class novel called Shiloh. I always use that because it's very engaging and it really gets them to love reading. And so we kind of kick off the year with that novel. And within that novel, we do a lot of different activities that allow for different types of instruction. So I don't think you got to see us reading. You saw us after us reading. So we did it as a shared reading where I was reading to the class. But we do that in different modalities. So sometimes the children were doing like peer reading, so they would read with a partner, or they would do it in kind of like a book club, or they would read some independently. So we tried to, vary the style of reading. And then we try to hit the 5 pillars of reading throughout my lesson, whether it be a whole class lesson or a small group partner work. So what we did first was the students we read the chapter, we spoke about it a little bit, and then they worked with a partner, and I grouped the partners basically with a student that was a little bit more advanced, when maybe a student that needed a little bit more help, so they can kind of like bounce off of each other, and they would feel successful in their partner work. And so one of the groups is working on vocabulary and identifying some vocabulary words that they needed, that they didn't know the definition of, using context clues, going back into the book and trying to find context clues to define the word. Another group was working on setting. So they had to describe the setting and how it changed throughout the course of the chapter. Another group was working on sequence of events throughout the chapter. And then the final group was working on showing how characters' relationships impacted the plot, kind of, and like how it was important to the plot. And I based those groupings and those tasks on some of the mini lessons that we have already done. So the students have been practicing those skills since the beginning of the year. Because the way we like to structure it is we do a little mini lesson on a comprehension skill or strategy, and then we practice it within our reading. We practice it this time we're practicing it in a novel. Sometimes we practice it in a small guided reading group. And then that led to the students having a reading response. So after they did their little partner activity and they spoke about it and they wrote about it on their worksheet, they went and they did a reading response, which was to identify an important quote from the chapter and talk about how it impacted the plot of the book. As we had gotten, we were only on chapter 4, so they didn't really know too much about the plot. They were still learning about it. And we also do, even though it's the 5th grade level and the phonemic awareness is more intact than it might be in the 2nd or 3rd grade, we still practice that skill, but in a little bit of a different way. So my students are working right now on like morphology and root words and syllable types. So we wove that in, and they were aware of certain syllable types that I had taught them. So they were identifying some of those syllable types in that chapter as well. So we're kind of trying to weave it all in within the whole class instruction.
Great, thank you. So once again, that just highlights that Tier 1 instruction of making sure there are explicit moments in instruction, especially in decoding and that word work across the week. And then also that language and content building and building that background knowledge and vocabulary across the lessons in the course of the week. And the consultants have been great so far in helping us in both of those elements, helping us with looking at best approaches for that phonics. We've also started to do a lot of work around the use of decodable text at the K3 level, and how those fit into the course of your 5-day week in reading, and how and when and for who those are used for. And then also helping us think about that language building block and how we help our students build those skills so that they really reach those higher level comprehension skills with greater ease. Part of the Tier 1 experience also is we at SIS have the WIN period. I say wait K. I still got my head out of there, and I'm not there anymore, but still there in my heart. Across K-8, our students have a what I need period. So Mrs. Miller, Mrs. Balger, could you tell us a little bit about that WIN period, how it's structured for our students in grades 3 to 5?
Yes. So like Ms. Turner was saying, we, in addition to the visits to the classrooms to see the ELA blocks, the board was able to visit our WIN period. And again, that stands for what I need. And this is where teachers can personalize the instruction to further the learning of our students, no matter what they need. It could be reinforcement, support, or enrichment to extend their learning. This is done daily, usually in a small group setting, and it's like the gift of time outside of the classroom to really target what the students need. Teachers use their assessments to identify areas of need or areas of places for advancement, and they differentiate their instruction. During this time also is when our Tier 2 supports occur. Ms. Stepkowski is going to talk to us about our AIS supports that occur during this time.
So when you guys came in, you saw a lot of different things happening in my room because I think you came in when probably 3 or 4 classes were transitioning over the time that you were there. So I'll try to address each piece of what you saw, and if I miss anything, please let me know. Reading in the Tier 2 level starts with 2 times a week of 40-minute instruction during that WIN period. The group consists usually of about 3 to 6 students at a time. We come together, we sit at one small little table, and it's a quiet and quaint little group. There are times when third period is needed for some students, and that gets into that Tier 3 time that some of my colleagues will discuss in a few minutes. During that 40 minutes, we talk about comprehension skills, we talk about vocabulary development, we do some daily reading check-ins and some reading practice, and we also do a little bit of visualizing and verbalizing, which is a program that you saw me using at some times. As far as the comprehension skills, we talk a lot about the things that are mimicked with what they're doing in the classroom. So Mrs. Jacobellis talked about character traits. While her class is working on character traits, students that come to me from there, we will also work on character traits, but we'll just do it maybe with a different piece of text. If those students are struggling readers, we'll use a text that's maybe a little bit below grade level for them so that they can work on the skill and not worry about trying to read the words at that moment. It's a little bit more of a direct approach because some of those students didn't quite get all of that character traits the first time around through, so we kind of do it a little bit more individualized to them. We do a few more check-ins as we're reading, so we may have a shorter text. We may pause more often to kind of summarize and make sure they're catching everything that was part of the reading that they were doing. And we do a lot of vocabulary and background knowledge. So when we talk about the vocabulary, similar to what's going on in the classrooms, we do a phonetic breakdown of those bigger words that they encounter. We put them on the board, and just to write a word up on the board, and I tell them, do not read that word. Please just spell it to me, and we'll spell it and we'll put it on the board, and they're like, oh, I know that word. And I'm like, no, don't tell us that word. Please just let's break it apart and let's use those skills that you're using in class. And they're like, oh, that's a suffix, and that's and they tell you, oh, this is a vowel team, and the E has to make the A say its name, and all these things. And they know it, but they feel comfortable doing it in a small group of kids who are at that same level as them. We talk about the morphology behind parts of the word. We also talk about multiple meanings of words. There are often times when students are reading a word, and I can't remember, I tried to think of it while I was sitting here, when you guys were in, somebody came up with a word in their writing, and they said something, and I had a picture in my mind of what they were saying, but it was completely different from what they meant. And it was what, do you remember? It was the bulletin board, correct. You are correct, 100%. So we talked about a bulletin board and what goes up on that bulletin board and what it looks like. And then I think, if I remember correctly, it was a completely different kind of bulletin board than what we were expecting. So just that multiple meaning and being able to give them some background knowledge is helpful. We also, you experience some reading check-ins as the students come in. They come with a little tool that many of the AIS teachers use, and it's just a way to help them summarize at home the reading that's already assigned to them. So classroom teachers are giving 15 to 20 minutes of reading each night. We give them that tool to say, write down 3 things you want to remember about what you were reading. They come in the morning and they sit with that piece of paper, and it's amazing how much they can remember about what they read the night before because we're having a discussion about it. And they own that book that they're reading. They look at you and they're like, do you remember when such and such a character was doing blah, blah, blah yesterday? And I look at them and there's 40 kids coming in my room in a week. And I'm like, yes, I remember that. And then they just own what they're doing. They feel like they're part of that book. They talk about that book as if it's important to them. So we do have that conversation about a book also, which is nice to get them talking again about something instead of just reading it and holding it inside. It's a great way for me to check in on their comprehension. I can check on the flow of their reading. I can check on the pace of their reading. If they're reading page 16 one day and they come in the next day and the next day and we're only on page 18 3 days later, there's a problem here. So then we discuss that problem. Why do you think I'm only on page 18? Oh, well, I haven't read for 3 days. Oh, that makes sense. Or sometimes it comes down to, well, you know, I don't really understand what's going on in this book, and they start to own those words also, and then we say, okay, let's have a conversation about maybe changing that book or doing something different with that book, or where did the meaning start to lose for you? We talk about just developing a lifelong love of reading during that time when they're sharing also, and that's something that I've seen over the years grow in the students that I see because we're having those daily conversations. Another program that you might have seen or strategy that I use is something called visualizing and verbalizing. And one of the things that we notice now with our readers is many of them are having a very hard time seeing a picture of the book in their mind. They have a hard time visualizing that story. There's so much graphics around our students these days. They are given these graphic novels, which are great for some students, but they're full of pictures and there's not much text on the page. So the students are now trying to create that story as they're looking at the pictures, and they have a very hard time comprehending then. With all the technology that's around, there's visuals for them all the time. So when you ask them to actually visualize and think of what they're seeing based on words that they've read, they're working so hard to read those words, they have a hard time even just putting that picture in their mind. So we do something called visualizing, verbalizing. We try to create a concept imagery. We try to use words from the text. We use words from our own descriptions of what's happening in our stories, and we describe a picture. Well, what did you see? And so if you saw that, now what does that mean to how does that character feel? Or what character traits, going back to that again, can we use to describe that character? All these things are going on during the AIS reading time, and there's a lot that helps to develop those higher level thinking skills, main ideas, conclusions, inferences, predictions, evaluations. And there's, like I said, a lot happening in those 40 minutes. So I know you guys saw each a little tiny glimpse of it, and I hope I addressed all of them.
So most of our students' needs will be met, the majority, through our Tier 1 and Tier 2 instruction. But there are students who are going to need more targeted instruction. That'll be Tier 3. And when you were here, you also did see Tier 3 situations and environments. Mrs. Mammarella and Mrs. Rosario were working with Tier 3 students. And those Tier 3 students, it's a program that is either more intense because of it's a smaller group, they meet more frequently, or sometimes there is a more specific multisensory program that will help those specific students. So you saw them in Melissa's room and in Cindy's. Melissa.
So you observed me doing a PAF lesson. PAF is a comprehensive reading, writing, and spelling program that uses these multisensory techniques, and it focuses specifically on the phonemic awareness, the phonics decoding, word recognition, vocabulary, spelling, handwriting, and comprehension. So very similar to the Foundations program, it's just in a much smaller group, and it's that direct instruction. Several of the students I work with are students that have IEPs, but there's also students that are general education students, and they receive this during the wind time, so they're receiving this 4 to 5 days a week over the course of 40 minutes. The PAF curriculum consists of 7 levels, and they have clear instructional scopes and sequence, meaning each level builds upon each other, so the students are getting a continuation as they move on in the level. And it just helps build that solid foundation for developing their reading skills. Lessons are completed over the course of 1 to 3 days, and they're broken into 5 components. So the first component is reviewing prior materials. So this is just going back and looking at sound symbols, looking at red words. Those are those words that don't follow those rules or patterns. And then the second part is introducing new material. So a new concept's taught, and it focuses on specific sound symbol association, looking at new red words, vocabulary, grammatical concepts, and adding suffixes or spelling rules. And then the third piece from there, after the materials are introduced, students then are asked to do that dictation piece where they have to apply those concepts in either a spelling piece of just the words or in a sentence. The fourth component is the reading piece. Now, students are going to read words, they're going to read phrases or sentences, and then it's going to be put all together in this decodable chapter book that they're reading, and it reviews those concepts from the previous lesson. And it just adds that oral reading fluency for students, comprehension, you asking questions along the way just to check for understanding of what they're reading, and it just exposes them to vocabulary and correct grammatics as they're reading. And then the last piece is that independent piece where students are working on activities and reviewing those concepts prior to the lesson.
And then, Ms. Rosario, you worked with students in even a smaller group, targeted instruction.
So the lesson you observed that day was an Orton-Gillingham lesson. In the Orton-Gillingham is essentially an approach that was created by, Dr. Orton and Anna Gillingham, and it was created around the 1930s. And a lot of the lesson that you heard from Mrs. Mammarella, the aspects of the lesson from Mrs. Mammarella, from Mrs. Roslin, were very similar to the lessons that, or aspects of the lessons that I deliver. The program is a multi-sensory approach that involves using language, visual, and auditory cues to help students learn. So, for example, when you came in, you may have noticed that I was teaching digraphs to students. And as I was teaching the digraphs, I had the students verbalize, say, SH. They were writing it in the sand as they were verbalizing the sound. In addition, that followed up, there was an echo that echoed across the lesson, that visual kinesthetic piece. So for example, when they were writing, I asked them to spell the word shop. They were then asked to segment the word shop, and then they were asked to then tap and spell it out loud. So when we're teaching a skill, there are echoes all the way across the lesson, giving the students the repeated practice that they needed in order to master the concept that's being taught. Now, I started off by saying that the Orton-Gillingham is very similar to the PAF, very similar to Foundations. How they differ is that in an Orton-Gillingham lesson, we always start, as does Foundations and PAF, with the students in front of us and their needs and the assessments that we've given. Where it differs is that I can choose materials and resources that I would like to use with my students that are the most effective with my students and respond to their needs, whereas PAF or Wilson or Foundations would be more curriculum driven, where you are following a curriculum. That allows me to move as fast as the students can move. There's a saying in Orton-Gillingham Gillingham, that you have to move as quickly as you can, but as slowly as you must. So, the purpose is to sort of accelerate the students, but also make sure that they've mastered the concepts.
Thank you. Great. So I thank you all so much, because this gives us a really well-rounded picture of not only our tiers of support, but once again, those two elements that are making up a reading process. I know everyone agrees that learning to read and being a proficient reader is not an easy process. There's a lot of elements that play to make our efficient readers, and I thank you for sharing those different elements with us. Once again, it was wonderful being in your classroom. Thank you for welcoming us. Your children were so engaged. I think that echoed through all of us when we left that visit, and just proud of the work that you're doing with students, but also the learning that you're doing this year to strengthen our practices even more. So thank you again.
Thank you, Liz. And if it's all right, board, if there's any questions, and then before that.
I have a question. Apologize that last month I was on travel that missed the great opportunity to visit classrooms. I would be thrilled to learn how these things are happening. I have one fundamental question that I heard you guys talk about, the tiers and so on. That is, as if we are assuming the student body is a homogeneous body. Obviously not. Obviously we have good readers that may have 100 vocabularies, and readers have 30, maybe even not able to spell. There's different, a broad spectrum. So in your 3 tiers, how are you treating these students that in that spectrum, whether advanced student that can go by yourself and accelerate, and the ones that really struggle, how much support we get? I did not get that picture, okay? I would like to hear there is some differentiation, that we are not neglecting any part of the students. I mean, the accelerated, students can, inspire into self-learning that really excel by themselves. And the ones that struggle, we have the tier 2, 3 in some way that really, make it up. That's my question. Okay.
So I think a lot of that is addressed during that what I need period, the WIN. We focused a little bit more right now on the tiers, but the activities are all differentiated. So many of our students who are advanced learners during WIN, they also leave and get their support systems with the advanced learning. Teachers, when Liz Stewart wasn't here able to come tonight, when she does her guided reading groups during her WIN period, there are different levels of guided reading groups where she will also take those students who need enrichment and put them in book clubs with books of higher text. So during that WIN period, the students who need acceleration will also get that, as well as the students who need support. So through the WIN period, some students are leaving. There are some students, like you say, who need to be enriched who don't leave. We have the supports of the advanced learning teacher who gives teachers enrichment activities to work with those students. She checks in with those students, and the teachers themselves have enrichment activities for those students. So we really look at all the students and what they need during that time.
As we mentioned earlier, we have an ongoing data review process across the year with our teams. Providers are a part of that, teachers are part of that, providers on different ends of the spectrum are part of that, and looking at multiple measures. And we do that purposefully so that these tiers of support, whether it's things that children are working on within the general setting on an everyday basis, or if it's more specialized, stay fluid. If you're responding, moving along, that's great, let's keep going. If you're not responding and there seems to be an issue, what do we need to look at? Where are the gaps happening? What could we do differently about the supports for that child? So I hope that highlights a little bit of how we monitor students and also provide, these are all different things that are provided at different levels to make sure that we really try to customize the learning experiences that are happening in literacy for students.
Do we then have our teachers somewhat categorized into different target groups?
Absolutely. As these ladies were sharing about that, the general reading block, right, that happens on a daily basis, information is used to inform that block of time. So when students are breaking out into their smaller groups or their partnerships, sometimes they're at that smaller table with the teacher working on that skill set they need to develop, while others may be working in partnerships or smaller groups on a different skill set that they need to develop. That block itself is differentiated not only from the type of groupings that are happening, but the material that they're experiencing, the type of prompts that they are following, or whatever skill set it may be that they need to work on. It's also part of the differentiated reading block.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, but
I had one thing. First, I'd like to say, it was a great time coming over there. We learned a lot, and you guys are doing a great job. Second thing is how do you feel about introducing a foreign language into all of this at this point?
So at this point, world language has been introduced as an experience for our students that is happening with the students' specials classes. So when they're going to art, music, library, media, there are semesters and points in the year where that's also partnering with a language teacher. So they're learning content, vocabulary, and there's also an infusion, in the SIS case, it's in Spanish, for students to have that experience to learn another language along the way as well. It's more of an experience than I would say a direct instruction, lesson structure like having another special. It's woven into the specials experience. Ms. Belger and Ms. Miller, I don't know if you want to add some more to that.
The students this year also, the Spanish teacher is pushing into classrooms for a short lesson each day, well, on a rotating basis. And I was lucky enough to see a lesson today. And when you're looking at reading instruction, she was teaching them a sentence to count the dots on a ladybug. And they learned the word ladybug in Spanish and the verb and the noun. And as she was teaching this in Spanish, she was referring back to the sentence structure in English. And the students, she would point to the words. How we said it in Spanish was a little different than the way we would have said it in English, the order of the words. So it really was amazing to see the students, how they related and how quickly they picked up on that. So I think it's just enhancing their reading instruction because it's making them think a little bit different. And it's also challenging them, where I also heard students say, oh, that word is almost like the word just like it is in English, when she said magnifico. And they said, oh, you mean magnificent, that's just the way it is. And there were many times that came up in this 20-minute lesson. So it was really, they were taking those language skills and building vocabulary and applying it to their English and their own reading of English. So it is, I think it's beneficial for the students, and they are loving it, and they are so engaged, and they want to speak, and they come up to you in the hallway, and they're saying to you, hola, Miss Belger, Senorita Belger, and they're trying to, they're dabbling with the language, which I think is great, and it's really coming over and across in the other areas.
I'm sorry, one more. So the children at the higher level of help, would that cause any confusion for them or make it more difficult to learn what they're learning with you having that in the mix?
As far as, you mean?
Just pronouncing words and all.
No, there is similar language that's being used across all of the settings. So, for example, a lot of the language that's being used in PAF is also being used in foundations. So there isn't really a confusion. What I'm finding is that the students that are receiving foundations in the classroom and then see me for more intensive services actually do quite well because it allows me to either pre-teach something, pre-teach a skill before they're taught it in the classroom, or more often than not, I am then just giving them the additional practice that they need with the skill. Oftentimes the students come to me already knowing a lot, but just not really quite sure how to apply it to text. And so I find that it works quite nicely.
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant with the introduction of the foreign language.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No.
Because you were explaining it well, but
yeah, my reading brain.
With the introduction of the foreign language, do you see any difficulties with that at any particular level, or?
No, not that I've noticed at this point, no.
Great.
And I think they're really learning more sight words for the Spanish. They're not really sounding out words.
Sentences.
They're
all that.
sentences or that. So everything in our school, if you've been in SIS, is now labeled. Every door has puerta on it, every desk, and they're seeing it as a sight word, not really using the phonemic awareness and the sounding out skills to learn the Spanish. So we haven't seen any conflicting information from kids.
Sorry, can I know you guys mentioned Foundations as a K through 3 program, and my kids are older now, but I know, and I know we talked about this briefly when we debriefed after the wonderful site visit we had. Did you implement the Foundations into 3rd grade as a response to what you were seeing from the data and stuff? Because I know that wasn't there back in their day, I guess.
Correct. I'll say before the pandemic, we did smaller groups of Foundation. It was more on a needs base. And then coming out of the pandemic, we saw that importance of that explicit instruction. And that's when we very deliberately made that decision to have that guaranteed experience for students in K through 3.
Right. And my only other comment was about visualization. I just love what you had to say about that, because I feel like it ties so nicely into all the work that you guys are also doing with executive functioning and how important it is for kids to visualize what is in the story, how to get ready, how to do everything. So I think it's great.
And that was an interesting question that you brought up about, interesting question about the impact of exposure to a second language or another language while they're also learning how to read and write in English. But I guess when you think about most other countries are learning another language along with their native language from a really early age. So it'll be interesting to see, does this have any, how does this have a positive impact on our students' literacy skills down the road? Does it open up more pathways that somehow makes even learning English easier?
And that's what research does say, is that learning multiple languages does open up more pathways for comprehension and understanding. So the kids are loving it, they're engaged, and it's amazing to see them, even speak. So I think it is a very positive impact so far.
Great.
Yeah, no, I will say it was great seeing the framework, how everything came together from the different tiers, and that can be possibly used anywhere, but how you guys handed off in consistent language across everybody there. I also did, my takeaway too was some of how students retain things, from the tapping, and then I forgot who did it, writing the visual on the board, and then someone made them walk across the room and write it again.
On the Post-it board.
What's that?
On the Post-it.
Was that you? Yeah, on a
large
Post-it. Yes, that was it. I've moved my whiteboard in my office to the other side of my room now too. Mixed results for me, but hope it's working better for the kids.
Over time, it'll help you remember.
Yeah. But no, it's good seeing that again, that consistency, and that as a group, you guys are starting to use some of those different tools as we learn more about how kids retain that stuff and how they learn. It's good to see.
Can I ask you guys that visit the program in the classroom, how many people do you think our student body that shows very advanced, as an advanced learner in this setting?
Advanced learner in that setting?
Spot any? The class you watch in some
No,
of these?
we spent like 10 minutes in each in each classroom there.
I don't know if I was going to spot it.
So we got to experience more abroad there.
Do we have a sort of feeling that our student body, do we have a skewed distribution, or is it flat distribution, or some kind of a Gaussian distribution? I think that's important, right? As a teacher, you probably have to know that, and particularly I think our advanced student in the past, when my kids are in school, we used to have the so-called advanced learning class or some enrichment class, which is very helpful, and a lot of parents really like it and want to push their kids into that, right? But sometimes you cannot just push. You really have to see the students are really up to it, right? So this teachers can observe, and we have to structure our program to support that. So my question is how's our distribution looks like today?
You know what, I'm just going to jump in because you were first asking for those of us who were there. I know I observed a lot of engagement. I was actually shocked by how much engagement. Really, and it's not just saying they were excited. I mean, the liveliness.
You can tell they weren't putting on a show just for us.
Even with us in the room too, some kids talking.
I know what you were asking. I saw plenty of in various stages differentiation, depending on what text they had, or they were in different small groups working on different things. There's absolutely, depending on what class. I mean, and sometimes it was one text that they were working on that they all experienced. But I observed a lot of differentiation in some of the different 10-minute groups we were in.
And
I think that's partly what you were asking.
No, my question is beyond, sometimes you recognize a good student and say, okay, you go to the library to study yourself. That's one solution. But I think we have to do better than that, right? I just want to know in general, our faculty react to the student body distribution. Every year may be different. Hopefully we are getting better and better because our pre-K students are, it's a lot of investment that the state government is putting in. We should have a skewed distribution towards student learning. It's getting better and better, not every year the same. This is my personal feeling. Okay.
So, Ify, I'd say almost like Cindy, you started us on a little bit of this conversation about where is the learner at that moment in time. Mm-hmm. And this team, I think you just heard very clearly, takes that learner from where they are here and moves them to the next most appropriate spot. Wherever that learner is, they want to take that child. They know these children. They will move them from where they are today to where they need to be tomorrow and the next day. And then, as you heard, from 3rd to 4th to 5th, and within those grade levels, they know these children. They spend their day with these children all day long as generalists. So they will help those children accelerate, perhaps get some remediation, do some catch up, whatever it is. They're all good students. They're all good children. The fact is where is their next step? I could not be more proud of this team, from the visit the other day to the conversation tonight. A while ago, I was a 1st and 2nd grade teacher. I have to say that I'm so glad that you are leading our schools at the elementary level with these children, because I see it. You let me come into the classrooms and talk to the children and things and connect with them. They are constantly moving. They know where their next step is, and when we talk to the kids, they heard it and saw it. So I would say, Ify, I think there's a lovely book called There Is No Normal, and it talks about the breaking down of the normal bell-shaped curve, as you described before, and it is moving all students to be not just proficient, but accelerating as best as they possibly can where they're at that level. And this is what the team is after. It's not a distribution curve. It is, here is Ray, and he needs to get to the next spot, so I want to work with him and the family and my colleagues. So again, I think that idea about looking at students as perhaps on some sort of scattergram or a distribution is short-sighted from our perspective. And I think the piece is, where is the most next logical step? And again, as you said, Liz, before, to see the team respond back, say after COVID, it was a different world. We're going to start picking this up. We're going to add this experience 3rd grade for all children and step it out. And so, and Linda mentioned a little before, there is an identified program we identify as the Advanced Learning Program for some students who need that extra experience, and they'll get that during the WIN period. So I don't know how, frankly, you all do this, to be honest with you, with the number of children and the complexity that every single child brings is different. They really, truly are. Different background experiences, different conversation of where they're at with their knowledge. Math, I know we're talking about reading, math, reading, writing, math, science. That background knowledge you're constantly trying to build for every child, this is rocket science. This is what you are doing. So again, I just, as a fellow elementary educator to start with, I couldn't be more proud of the team. So thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm not questioning their capability of a teaching.
No,
I'm just questioning one thing is, from a board perspective and from sometimes community's perspective, how do we measure results? And the results typically, if we say, well, we don't care about these rankings or are these, but there still have to be something that we could talk about as our measurement. Yeah. If we are able to identify our distribution, how they are skewed and how they are improved year after year, sure, we're not doing instantaneous measurement, but we are observing year after year. That's after 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, some more students, perform in some way, in some, statistical fashion. And that's what, we are looking for. I think
I'm going to drop in one more second, if that's all right. Our high school children today came and spoke. If that is not evidence enough of what these teachers are doing to help support our children to grow. These children spoke about, I needed support along the way in my learning. I received that, I got it. And look at me today, and the staff here, they started with these teachers here. And actually our Primrose leadership team is here. They started with those little ones. We are so fortunate that our children stay with us for a very long time. The reality of what we're seeing, the evidence we're looking for, I could not have said, hey, can you give me some evidence, Ray? I could not have presented better evidence today of the quality of this program, the quality of our children, the quality of experiences they're getting than today. I mean, if that's not it, I got nothing, because that was it. And if you go to our science research and you go and last time the board had a chance to read the writing, the materials that the children produced, and looking at that evidence and going and talking to the children. We have a play this Friday. You go and see that play, you're like, wow, our kids can do that? So that's where the evidence lies. I am not looking at some ranking score here or that. I am looking at the body of evidence that truly came forth tonight, and I would compliment our students and our building administration that came forth to do that. This is how I can say that this is a district, and we're continuing to get better at that, and it starts with you folks here, and you recognize, I saw the eye contact with some of the kids, and you're like, yeah, you were with me. So you know these children now, and you see them, and you're so proud of where they are. I am proud of our kids and our faculty and staff. I know you are, Ife, too. I'm just struggling. I don't have a data set to say, hey, here we went from 117 to 118 on this. It's like, here's where the students are. Listen and talk with them. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to have the conversation. I know we're going to take a break here. Another board wants to say thank you to everybody in person for the visit and also coming out. So again, we should not be and you're not sitting on your laurels. As if we did not hear that tonight, you're asking for the next professional learning. You're asking for the next resources. And the board is consistently here to support, as evidence we talked about. You mentioned briefly, Liz, about our consultants coming on board, our PLC associates. They were in the campuses yesterday and today, working with you side by side. That's the commitment that this board and this community is making, that we know it's a different world right now, and we're going to get you the best support and help as we can. So thank you for always with open arms. Hey, we're always listening to learn. We've got new literacy experts coming on board to help us here for the next couple of years. So thank you very much. Thank you.
And then, to close off really quick, we also do have a reading goal that we've set for the board, right? So that's one of the objectives that we're tracking and focus, right? And witnessing this here in the investment that they've been putting in and trying to improve that consciously, the effort they put in, and to get that number turned around, right? Albeit, Ray gave a lot of other examples, but there is a measure that we have to make sure that is turning around. So that's one of the things we're tracking.
So we'll get to a quick
All right, so now we're going to go to a quick break right now. Just
Thanks,
to
Paul.
thank everybody, and then we'll be back in a couple minutes back to public session.
Thank you.
All right, welcome back, everybody. All right, we're going to go, next up we have on the Central Report, we're on the IB continuum. I have just one thing I wanted to just mention, so I did write it down so I could read it, so I don't forget what I want to say. So over the last couple weeks, since the last board meeting, there's been a lot of feedback regarding that meeting and the discussion around IB. And I want to thank all those who did reach out and share their thoughts and support. I do apologize to some. I do intend to get back to everybody, or did intend to get back to everybody. Unfortunately, life got in the way over the last couple weeks for me. But I apologize. It was not my intention not to get back to anybody. And please, I'll remind the board, feel free to nudge me if I don't get back in a timely manner. But regarding the substantive issues that were raised, particularly comments around the IB program and the utilization of external sources in discussion, I understand your concern and share your commitment to factual accuracy. The board is dedicated to making informed decisions based on accurate information. I acknowledge the importance of through research and fact-finding in our discussions and decision-making process. While board members actively receive feedback from the community members and attempt to raise concerns, we hear and often react in the moment. This underscores the need and reminder for all of us to engage in topics based on well-researched and credible sources, as misinformation can be harmful and counterproductive to our collective goal of advancing our educational system. We also recognize the importance of clear and transparent communication with the community and want to ensure that questions on how we spend our resources are answered. We are continually looking at ways to improve this. in the coming board meetings, and we will be asking the planning committee to focus on these topics. We have also, have also asked our administration, both independently in collaboration with our PTAs, to set up events for our community members to attend and ask questions to understand topics, such as IB and MYP better. And I do strongly encourage our community members who have questions to make sure that they attend these. These are they're under-attended, but these are areas where you can have open dialogue. We could talk about things, opinions, thoughts, feelings, and get a perspective from our administrators and people that are teaching these things on a regular basis. I will say, from my own personal statement, from my point of view, look, I'll speak for myself. I have children in the high school. I did start, when I did start here on the board, I did have limited knowledge and understanding of what the IB program was and what the value was for our students, because I didn't have students in it, and I wasn't actually educating myself on it. Since being on the board, I've educated myself, and I've, by force of coming here, but I've learned a lot more about the IB and the value it serves. In addition to that, such as the collective group of the students that have come up here, I also do have, my own children in the program and their friends who have gone through the program. I've yet to hear any kid not talk exactly like all those students here that spoke this morning about the program, right? It's the framework, it's how they're learning, and the kids actually, enjoy it a lot. In addition to that, right, it does offer, especially at the high school level, some benefits financially with, school credits and things like that. I've also talked to numerous, college recruiters, college consultants, right? And all of them have talked highly, highly about IB and the benefits of that when your kid is going to college. So I speak on myself, on behalf of myself, I am a huge supporter of IB. With that said, I will turn it over to Ray to talk about the continuum, a primer of IB.
Great. Thank you, Nick. All right. So Chris has got just the overhead here. So just wanted to show the community where, if they are interested in following that pursuit of a little deeper dive on the education, we have that up on the website. So Chris is going to go ahead and walk us through. Board, Nancy was kind enough. She has a hard copy. Again, this is kind of an introductory primer piece here. So this is a initial splash if you would like to desire to get into there. But all of this is up on our website. So the first two links actually drive one to the high school for the diploma program. The second link is to the mid-years program at the middle school level. Right below there is what is the IB continuum. So you will see an overview, looks about what is an IB education. There's that workshop actually that the board had an opportunity at the last meeting for about an hour and 15 minutes to spend through. So that information is up there. That's information that reflects that I believe this year we're just short about 40% of our juniors and seniors at least take one IB course. And so when you're looking at, I know our students here talked about the full diploma program, but we have roughly 4 out of 10 of our juniors and seniors at least taking one. So that information is in there. All learners, and that's a key part in here, really accessibility for all learners is a key component. And then as you look at the next areas where like the primary years program, parenthetically put in there, that's in the area of feasibility look at for the elementary schools. Middle years program, we were approved last December, just roughly a year ago at this point in time. The high school now is seeking accreditation, we anticipate sometime in the 24-25 school year. The diploma program has been approved since 2017. And then what is also identified as the career program is an exploration we're looking at the high school level, provides strong internship opportunities for students and things like that. So it's not aligned exactly with the diploma program, but it's a 2-year experience. Students have to create a pathway, could be on our Project Lead the Way pre-engineering pathway, whatever it was, and then they can go ahead and seek the accreditation there. The last part is a snapshot of some literature and review. Impacts on the International Baccalaureate Program in Teaching and Learning, looks at the IB program, Gateway to Higher Education Beyond. The last one, just a little bit on the dynamic presence in the United States, the growth and the characteristics of the IB program in the United States of America. And so when you look at that, you will see that in compilation with every one of those articles also brings in the research in there. For example, you will see that the ability for students who take at least one course at the high school level in IB, they are more likely to go to college, and they are more likely to sustain going in college. And actually, the AP has typically shown that as well, too. Frankly, the IB is a little bit beyond that, but both are very good. So that's where both a very robust program at the high school going there. So if you're interested, community and board, you have hard copies in front, so you have to click a few times. But Nancy was kind enough to pull those out, break them right in that categorical area. So please, those are your copies. Write all those kind of things and all that stuff. So if and when, I guess, that generates some thoughts and questions, please, funnel that through with Nick or Amanda, and then we'll do our best to bring that information forward at subsequent meetings with the board. And then also, when I remind the board that later in the year, I think the first touchstone is February, we just did the site visit at the elementary school level. Our next is going to be at the high school level. The topic is to look at the International Baccalaureate program at the high school level. So when we do that, we'll get a chance to kind of do a walkabout, just like we did at SIS. We'll talk to some students who were fully diploma program. We'll talk to some other students who are just sampling a class here or there. They might be doing the IB class here, an AP class, or a project either way. And we hope to also have an experience where it's a new experience for our middle years program that we're looking to get accreditation. There's an experience that's identified as Tusker 101 for the freshman and Tusker 102 for the sophomore. So sit on some of that experience, because again, the MYP program isn't for a handful of students at the middle school level. Every single child experiences the framework of best approaches to teaching and best approaches to learning here at the middle school. Those documents will describe it much better than I am, I'm sure, right now, but it'll give you a sense there. 9th and 10th grade would be the same at the high school. So that's every 9th grade child right now is going through actually what we identify as Tusker 101. That's looking at the approaches to teaching and learning, as well as really that learner profile that sits above me, behind me there. And we actually had a preliminary visit from our IB folks who will ultimately, hopefully, provide us with accreditation. They gave suggestions to our team there. You know what? I've never seen anything of this level, this caliber of quality. I suggest you actually take this, even before you're accredited. You might want to think taking this to the IB World Conference and presenting. That's the quality of feedback they got to our teachers and the administration at that building of what they're doing for the 9th grade. So you'll see that in action later in the year. I believe it's February. And then I think the second meeting after that is when that we'll come back and have a conversation like today. So we'll have a few of our students hopefully will join us, a few of our faculty, and then we'll just do very similar today. So that's the spring visit. So thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Is that visit just going to be, to the high school, is that just going to be solely about IB? Or
that is the intent of the program.
Other classes? And
not on this visit. No. That's been since we had identified back in the fall. Just like here, we were specific on reading. We didn't hit math, science, or social studies at the elementary level. This is specific on the International Baccalaureate program, the IMYP, as well as the diploma program, as well as some of the initial pieces with that. So that could be the second, we go back for another visit, whatever it is, but that was kind of where we had made that determination before.
So there'll be an additional visit at some point?
Well, we always have a fall as a board member and as a spring. We always have them, so next year we'll have a fall and we'll have a spring. So that's kind of the boots on the ground, kind of walking and connecting with kids that we see.
So we're doing IB this year, and then next year we would look at something else at the high school.
Right, and so those are the pieces that we would look and examine. And typically what we do is that, so this year is SAS, high school, next year will be Primrose Middle School, and then they just kind of every other year kind of do a staggering piece.
Right, because last year we looked at Primrose at kindergarten.
Correct.
And the UPK, and then we also looked at the middle years program at the here because we had just been accredited. Or,
yes.
Yeah.
So that's at every other year cadence. So we'll visit two of the schools back and forth. So. And then hopefully again this aligns and gives information back to the board, talking to the kids and things they have, and faculty and staff. So.
Great.
Thanks, Nick.
On the professional learning costs as a follow-up from last week.
Sure, I'll turn that over to Chris and just have Chris walk this piece through again. So when we spoke last time, what were some of the related professional learning costs for the overall umbrella. So Chris will go ahead and walk that through.
Yep, again, just in response to the questions that were brought up last board meeting, just put together just a couple slides here on the professional development costs that we've budgeted for over the last few years. You could see overall we broke it down in between IB costs and non-IB costs, and then put a total line on the chart there as well. And you may notice, just to point out the difference between the 22-23 budget and the 23-24 budget. It does look like it jumps up considerably. but including in that 23-24 number is the cost for PLC Associates, which is the literacy consultants that we brought on this year. That actually is not part of the 23-24 general fund budget. That's being paid for out of the some of the COVID funds that we had this year, and then next year it would be built into the budget. It was a two-year program that we signed up for with PLC Associates. So that made up the large majority of the jump that you see there between the 2 years. On the next slide, we go through a couple of the examples of professional development, updating, revising, and aligning curriculum. A lot of that work happens during the summer, where teachers come in and work on all things related to curriculum. And then we have other in-house learning opportunities and service learning opportunities, external consultants that we just talked about, such as the PLC Associates. There's executive functioning part of that. And then some of the off-site conferences that many of our professional staff go to. It could be at BOCES, could be at a state. It all depends on where some of the conferences are being held. So that's just a quick, I'd say, snapshot of some of the things that we're doing as far as professional learning, and then kind of how it translates between IB and non-IB, because that was really the question that was posed last board meeting.
So for the IB, it looks like it roughly comes out over the 6 years to $685,000.
Yep.
Approximately.
Yep.
How many teachers do we have trained in that? We have about 12 teachers?
That's false.
I'm asking how many.
Yeah, so
Okay.
what school?
High school, IB program.
Got it. Well, the IB program is middle school and high school.
So are we were doing, and we're putting MYP into this number?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
It's
Yes.
all encompassing.
So every staff member in this building has received some training on the middle years program. So that would include every staff faculty member here. At the high school, we have, I believe, from between the 11th and 12th grade, that's the diploma program. You're talking, I believe, over 30 teachers there. The 9th and 10th grade, they're on their journey. They've started that every teacher in 9th and 10th grade, because they're all be teachers of the middle years program. So again, you're talking about everybody here, and the majority of the staff at the high school now will be receiving or have received training.
So I'm sorry, what was the total number?
For this campus is 100%. And for at the other campus, my estimate right now, you'd be about 60 to 70% right now. Again, we have teachers who were trained, who maybe retired and things, so we bring people back on, we got to train them, but that would be what number, say right now, in a year from now, we would anticipate 100% of the faculty to be trained again. As we're approaching the same piece here with the middle years program, all faculty would need to go through that training.
And does that include all the costs for travel, hotels?
Yeah, that's
food.
Yep, conferences are all included in those costs there.
Okay.
And that covers all different subjects and everything too. So that's pretty.
Right. I appreciate you saying that.
That's actually encompassing a lot within that in comparison to, like, PLC is specifically literacy and specifically elementary school.
It is very specific K-5
versus
literacy.
There's a lot that's being encompassed in that IB figure. Okay.
And as well as in the gray bar, I guess I would say, when
Right, yeah.
things like, and you mentioned earlier before, Amanda, with the executive functioning. That's a partnership that we have created with individual that Phil Cavanaugh has met, as well as the BOCES program. So we have, that's a piece. And actually in that, with our last executive functioning piece, the individual spent the day with our faculty, and that evening spent the time with our parents. And so that would be also inclusive of that executive functioning in that regard. Programs like Responsive Classroom would be in there as we look at refreshers for those as well. New standards alignment, depending upon which content area, those would be including professional learning. Some of our newer members to the team who are new to the profession as well, some support typically through BOCES, again, that would align to classroom management and those kind of areas. As far as any of the new standards that we're looking at, technology integration right now, looking at those new elements. In fact, some of that would include even just use of different technology elements, be it either the Schoology page, whatever. So it's all encompassing, basically, of everything that's in there.
Chris,
I have another question. Sorry, go ahead. You can.
I'd like to ask Chris maybe next time, or since we're going to get into a budget soon, to have some breakdown numbers to support this almost one-third increase in this learning cost, okay?
We just told you it's from the
Yeah.
PLC Associates.
No, I like to break it down in the sense that each element, you had all these categories, so we understand a little bit in detail, and also perhaps we could project in the future. Is any item that would decrease?
So I would say right now, we have a commitment to the PLC Associates, which is relatively $160,000 of that increase. This year, being funded by
So
COVID.
that would decrease?
One more next year, and then after that, we would see that bring back.
Yeah,
It's
I
a
would like to
2-year
see that
commitment.
kind of
Sure.
picture
Yeah, we can do
in
a
a
forecast.
budget, exercise, okay?
And I'll probably have that included in the February board meeting when we talk instructional budget.
Okay.
And I think you mentioned earlier, I think, Nick, you were leaning where we'll work maybe with the planning committee and.
Yeah, so one thing I want to do trigger up is so Amanda, who's on the planning committee, by the way? Okay. Yeah, the planning committee should start getting together actually and collect some of this information that we're going to want to see as far as the budget. All right, so this was a one-off that we collected in response to last week's question. But let's get ahead of it and try to get our budget questions, how we want to see it. Let's get it to the, Chris and team ahead of time, so that when we do the budget presentations, it has it in formats, breakdowns, or whatever that we're looking for detail. We give them that awareness or what we're expecting ahead of time on that. So if the planning committee could get together, or actually if others can talk to the planning committee on what they want to see, and then it can collectively put that up to Chris, with enough time, so when you do come through the budget cycles, we could see those breakdowns. That'd be good.
That would be very helpful.
Right, because on the December meeting, we're going to first start to talk about the big overall overview, correct? So so if you guys can start to gather your questions and get them to the three of us, and then we're looking to I'll talk to Nancy and try and get something on the books to work with our schedules, so we can have another planning meeting as we enter budget cycles, and so we can just get all this stuff up, and how best to even communicate it to the community, because I'm sure everyone is riveted to see the budget, but it's important, and it's, if you have questions, we want to hear them, so.
I just have a question. The red bar, gray bar, are they silos where if you get rid of one, the other doesn't change? Or?
Right. That's why my question is.
So I mean, to be clear, overall, if we take a look at this number here, right, it's a total of, take PLC out, it's a $500,000 a year on on a $100 million budget to train all of our teachers, right? It's half a percentage point that we're talking about of training and educating our
That
teachers.
benefits all of our
Is
students.
a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
But.
So am I hearing I can increase, hold on, am I hearing I can increase the budget next year on this line item? Jen, I think what I hear you saying, I want to check, if the red goes away, let's say, no, that's about curriculum, it's about assessment, it's about bachelor instruction practice, that's provided in some other fashion.
You'd be paying somebody else.
You'd be paying somebody else, yeah. I think, did I get it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And to train that many teachers, you may be paying more.
Right, and one of the values and opportunities we have, especially when we have a nice cadre, and some of these teachers that you spoke to today are those teachers, so they'll come in, they'll turnkey it, and they'll bring that back into the school district, and then we'll provide after-school opportunities, or the learning office provides summer learning opportunities. So those are our faculty who have a really strong knowledge of, let's say, best intervention practices in a classroom for Tier 1. What can I do to help my kids who are struggling reading? They will provide that teacher to their neighbors and their colleagues in the building, say, how can I do that? So that training continues. To do that training, though, is we have a very tight schedule today. We often have to provide after school or summertime curriculum work. And as the board knows, in September, we bring that forward. Here's a list of all the curriculum work the team has done. Well, that's a curriculum rate that we pay those employees to go ahead and get trained. So that's inclusive of there as well, too. So there's lots of different ways to train, and that's where I think on the next slide Chris was trying to point out, we got BOCES partnerships, we got some conferences, we got some in-house services and things like that. It's a really nice tapestry of all the different ways that are trained, but those numbers are reflected on that previous slide.
Yeah, because I even saw I attended the executive functioning program as a parent, and it was wonderful. I'm a big proponent of that philosophy. I've like 5 years ago, I think I was first introduced to Sarah Ward from people in the school district, and she wasn't the one who spoke that night, but it was somebody who works with her, so it was the same methods. And I already saw them being implemented, it looked like, in the classroom I saw on our Facebook page. You saw them looking at the clock with the time management, and it's such a valuable piece, so I'm glad to see us pushing forward in that.
And I think you've mentioned that because on the lower left of the screen, you'll see the in-service learning. What that means is basically we're working with teachers as they go on the fly, but they're meeting with some of our teachers who are very knowledgeable in the executive functioning, for example. So they're doing after-school or summer trainings on an executive functioning workshop their teacher colleagues are providing. So by training a good cadre of teachers, typically they're at BOCEs or they may go to a conference training, then they come back, it doesn't stop there.
Right.
It's turned around and it's shared and it continues forward. So that's a great example of the in-service with executive function. That's going to continue to move forward as well. So we'll go ahead. We'll get Nancy will get a note out. Hopefully meet in December before the holiday break. We'll be ready and prepared. Hopefully, as Chris said, thank you for the January report, so we can put forth whatever queries of information that the board is looking for. So we'll get that scheduled and Nancy will reach out hopefully tomorrow.
Okay.
Thanks. And that was the last thing we had central office.
All right.
So just real quick, I'm sorry, just to confirm, so you said how long would it be until everybody was IB trained?
Well, the anticipation would be basically by this time next year, because we just have a handful more at the high school. This campus is done. High school is on the beginning piece. They're not fully accredited yet, so by the time we reach accreditation, that training will take place. The Learning Office is working with them through the spring, some more to train. We have some plans for the summer. We believe that we'll be able to complete that, but we also know we have brand new employees that are coming on board that we may or may not capture right away.
All right, so our ultimate goal, and I believe you had told me this before, I just want to make sure.
Yep.
Our ultimate goal is to be a solely IB district, correct?
So what I try to describe there, and in your folder there, is the IB continuum, is the perimeter of that. And so again, it's not a kind of what we're teaching, that's the standards from New York. The how is we're doing it through the framework.
No, I understand that.
So the continuum there, which you have there.
I guess my question is, there's going to be other types of diplomas still that children can get besides IB?
Oh, absolutely. And only a small portion, as the children said today, about 20 or so, the kids will have that, but they'll have the regular New York State program. I'm really glad you mentioned that, because Claire and I were talking the other day, and actually, as we mentioned, the New York State Blue Ribbon panel just came out with their suggestions. Our understanding is frankly that the IB program will be allowing you not to do any of the regions and things like that anymore, because they see the quality and value that you don't have to choose not to do that, but they're giving flexibility to school districts how to do that. So, hey, if you do that, we then give you a sanction from New York State says you met the standards. If you're not, then you would be needed to take the additional regents or other things like it. So it is a small group that do the full, but again, we have roughly 40% of the kids combine AP, IB. Some kids take AP only, IB only, but a lot take combinations. We're up to just about 70% at least take a combination of at least one of those classes.
So they'll still have an option to have an
100%.
AP diploma or general
So
diploma?
AP is not a diploma.
AP Regents.
AP is not a Regents. That's a second accredited piece. And so I like the way you're saying it, because the diploma program is something that's not recognized just in New York, is an international recognized diploma. It is the only one like it. AP does not provide such thing. Those courses individually are recognized. They will definitely have that. We have a lovely, robust AP program. We actually just brought on an AP class not too long ago on computer sciences. That the team said that's the best fit. Great. And so the math team made that determination that was the one. So yes, those will be both of those. And we see, again, 70% of kids are combining in one of those two. Many dabble in those. And we have a lovely Project Lead the Way program, which allows pre-engineering. And then it also has us to go ahead and look at the sports exercise physiology program. So those are other options that kids can get. And they could get dual credit if they like, and they do that through a university partnership. So it's choice. Yeah, those are good, give me a better job describe maybe what I've been doing, so, yeah.
So right now, all kids graduate pretty much for the most part with a Regents diploma.
Yes.
Some have the option to take AP. Some have the option, or they all have the option. Some elect to take AP classes, right, to give them college credit. Some elect to take IB classes to give them college credit or some other avenues to take a look. Those are all
I think a concern maybe.
Diploma still.
But also
Even if
Regents
you're-
diploma.
At this point in time,
Even if you get an
yeah.
IB diploma, you also have a
Do
Regents
the
diploma.
Regents, yeah. All the Regents
Well, no, I think
assessments.
a concern maybe with some of the community is that they think that it's just going to be a solely IB diploma, and
No.
that's
Yeah, and
all they're
that's
going to
what I-
have, and
yeah.
it's not going to,
No.
you're not going to have a
Yeah.
choice to do Regents or get a general diploma. And
No, I think we showed that last week, right? I think the IB diploma is a very hard thing. It would be the equivalent of taking, what, 11 AP
Plus the
classes?
CAS and all the other stuff.
Which I don't think I wouldn't
Zero.
expect that from my kids, and most people wouldn't expect that from their kids either. Some kids can
above and
elect to
beyond
do that,
option.
but that's not, I think that's a few select gifted, whatever kids are, that want to achieve that, but that's not a mandate.
And I appreciate you sharing that, because that's our communication pieces. We continue to, how can we help remove that, not just here, but many school districts, that when they kind of start getting to people, oh, this is my experience with it, that's not the piece, but I understand that it certainly is on the mind of some folks. So as we continue to, a lovely meeting, I think it was 2 weeks, I think. Dom, I think you were at that meeting, the MYP meeting. I thought that was helpful to describe what it is and what it isn't. So we're looking to try to create more opportunities. It's a good group, too. I thought we had about 35. That was a really nice number for us.
35.
So we want to try to do some more of those coming forward to describe what it is, because we even had that night, so some folks were asking, so how do I get my kid in the IB program at the middle school? It's like, if you're in the middle school enrolled, every child is going through, again, the framework of looking at best instructional practices and best approaches for students learning. And those are
With
pieces.
New York State curriculum.
With New York State doing the driving. Here's what you need to learn. You need to learn about this about history. You need to learn about this about history. It's in a class today, and they're doing it. It's like, those are New York standards. Like, how do we then have that conversation with the children? How do they learn? And so we will keep just hitting that. And actually, I had talked to Amanda Bergen, our communications partner. We are looking to go work with our Somers Record partners and put like a multi-part series in the paper, so people can spend a little time digesting what that is, and then if they want more, they'll drive them to the website. I know everybody's not diving on the website, so hopefully we can do that and describe more of that, about what it is and what it isn't and stuff. So, and I'm just going to take a moment that we actually had a school district right in our area just come visit our campus last week, as they're looking at the middle years program. Another school district's looking at the International Baccalaureate program right in the Westchester area. You are already seeing the trend, the upward tick, a trajectory. You will continue to see that now that New York State has said that you are going to have options as a school district to have the students meet more of a flexible way to meet those expectations. They have basically sanctioned both the AP in some of those courses, as well as the IB full diploma. Will then do some other things, but they've historically said, yes, we will acknowledge that is a rigorous kind of experience for the kids, and they're going through that, and it meets their standards. So there's a lot changing. That's definitely a big one.
So all the Regents classes will still be there in order to get a Regents diploma.
That was my question, because New York State was floating getting rid of Regents within the next year or two. Has they put anything out yet?
So, good question. So with the Regents piece, I think that there's probably a lot of folks would be reading into, hey, they're going to get rid of the Regents exams right now. There's 5. The Regents will stay. It's just a matter of that content really won't change in 9th and 10th grade. What the team is working on now through the trainings, say, how can I take that New York State driven, expectations, and then how can I deliver that through these like learner traits behind me and the best approaches to teach? How can students learn more from inquiry-based learning versus just on the receptive side? So that's the technique. How can I have students demonstrate their learning in one way versus just a multiple guess assessment? Well, I guess it was a multiple guess when I took it, maybe a multiple choice assessment when everybody else takes it. So they're really giving us some flexibility, but the standards are the standards for all of our K through 12 kind of pieces, what kids will learn. And there, we don't, go and buy a curriculum. And frankly, actually, there's a little bit more with the AP piece that's identifying where they want from some more of the collegiate piece, where the IB does as the children spoke. Hey, I think Sebastian said, I wasn't asked to do this experience of my writing research project, which the board got copies of last week. He chose to, on this passion, to do his research project. So, but 9th and 10th, this doesn't change. Curriculum stay the same. The Regents test, I had a Regents, I don't know if everyone's from New York, but I got one of those Regents things. And so that may be a thing of the past a little bit with the traditional Regents test sitting down to those. But how do you demonstrate evidence that you have met the expectations of New York State. That's the part, the recommendation they're talking about in the next, hopefully 12 to 18 months, going to take time. What evidence would the state say, that's evidence, we will consider that meeting the expectations. So
it
that's
just
yet
wouldn't
to
be an
come.
official region to like a regular final, sort of like another class?
I think right now we're going to see that experience a little bit, whether it's the regular regions final stuff. Will they give schools access? And Heidi, you had mentioned, and I know the Western Putnam School Board Association, they held the conference a couple weeks ago. They had a school district down in the city that came forward, look, for 20 years. We've provided this evidence to the state, said here's our evidence of student performance and their products that they deliver, and the state said based on that, all the students graduate with a Regents diploma. It's just a different way to show it versus the Regents test. I think that's going to become more an option as people are seeing that, just sitting down and taking a multiple choice test is not the best reflector, but those are going to take a little time.
Can I just say, to be fair though, I'm from New York, so I also got a Regents diploma. It was math was set up differently back then, but but New York State's the only one who does, it's just a regular high school diploma. It's just how New York calls it, a Regents diploma, right? Am I crazy? Okay.
Yeah, there's very little states that do an exit expectation, an exit exam for you to reach a Regents diploma, and what they're saying is, frankly, and that's one part very interested in the career program at the high school. Inside of that one, there's internship opportunities. So that's what children are looking for. They're looking for internship opportunities. They're looking real work research. They're looking out, getting in the field to check it out now before we go to maybe college or the workforce. They don't want to do that. The state now is starting to see that. Actually, that's something they want to pursue more than they have before.
And I know Nick mentioned it in his statement, but you're continuing to go around to the PTAs and different groups too, and also to describe it. I know you went to the Primrose one recently.
Yeah, it was,
I heard it was very positive, and maybe even changed some people's minds on what PYP is versus what it's not. And
I'm glad you shared that, because that's the opportunity when folks come. Again, I'll keep plugging the IB with an open mind to say, I'm not exactly sure if I understand that. For what I do understand, I need to let go. Folks are coming with an open mind. I have a better understanding of what that is, because the PYP is a relatively new program. The career program is their fastest growing component of the overall umbrella of IB, but it's getting rave reviews from the students who are now really an opportunity to see how I can look at a pathway. Their 2-year course is not called a theory of knowledge, it's called personal and professional skills. So they're like resume writing and they're doing interviewing and all that stuff. So if kids are kind of interested in that, we'll be able to have that happen for them. And it's not adding a new priest, there's not new content. It's really an opportunity, how do I teach this through the lens of having kids, I'm interested in doing this study on maybe biomedical information. Here, let's do that, and let's teach the standards through that vehicle.
And being through IB, they're able to connect us with different organizations and businesses and what have you through that career program. Is that the case?
That is one of the nice advantages. Then we become part of a network that we're not trying to go out and necessarily shop for people, for our kids to go do internships in. We'll be able to drop in and say, now being recognized, that our kids then will be able to have coordinated efforts with predetermined groups who, frankly, as businesses, they're interested in having a student who's gone through the IB program. Right there, they're like, ooh, I'll take you as an intern because I know what you're going to get. So that is exactly one of the advantages we see. We're not a huge school district, so to try to coordinate all those potential internships could be challenging. So I appreciate the question. So it would help me do a better job of processing it out loud. So.
Yeah, because that can definitely sound weird, but that's one thing I remember from, I think there have been some of the most esteemed districts in Westchester County have long not given the Regents exams.
Correct.
Because they've put something else together that was approved by the state that they felt was better practices and more comprehensive.
Very much so.
This is basically the state recognizing IB as a program of the caliber that it would fill in instead of needing to take Regents exams.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because Dom, I don't know if you have handy. Is there any upcoming PTA event?
Yeah, there's a Zoom tomorrow, I think. I said it should be on the calendars. I think it was I forgot what. I think it was in middle school.
Got it.
For coffee on Thursday for SEPTA too, if anyone's interested.
All right, and I will say, MYP got 35. Mark Bear, we only got 3. 3.
Mr. Bear, if you could move your coffee on the 7th, I'll attend. If it's not on the 7th, I can attend, because it's the first night of Hanukkah, and that's when they're doing the town menorah lighting. So if otherwise, I'm not saying you have to move it for me. I'm just throwing it out there that people might be at other events.
If we move it, we'll have 4. All right, on to personnel consent agenda.
Okay.
Okay.
Let it be resolved, the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the superintendent of schools, hereby approves the attached personnel agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Okay. Memorandum of Agreement, the CBA amendment. Let it be resolved, the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the superintendent of schools, hereby approves the attached memorandum of agreement between the Somers Central School District and Somers school-related professionals dated on November 20th, 2023, creating the title of maintenance worker.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Question.
Oh, yep, sorry, good.
A simple question, I don't know. Can you estimate how much percentage of these days is overall compared to the whole SSRP body in terms of vacation days?
That's the
Oh,
next
we're
one.
not talking about that one
That's
yet.
the next one.
Oh, you're the
Hold
next
your
one?
question, yeah.
All right. Oh, I'm reading the next one, sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained?
Okay.
All right, let it be resolved, the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the superintendent of schools, hereby approves the attached memorandum of agreement between the Somers Central School District and the Somers school-related professionals dated November 9th, 2023, regarding vacation leave days.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, questions?
Okay. You understand my question?
No, can you repeat that?
Huh?
Can you say that again?
You didn't pick that up?
Basically, you know, you say this is the first year, means new hire. New hire is smaller population compared to total population, right?
So this is impacting every SSRP 12-month
right,
staff.
right. So roughly, what is percentage of days we're talking about?
So I'll just give some examples. A new hire that was hired on July
For the
1st of this year.
overall vacation days, yeah.
Right, so a new hire hired on July 1st of this year would be receiving 0 days currently before, if this gets approved here, they'd get 0 days for this
No,
full
I understand
school
that
year.
part. No, we don't have hired that many people, right? We hired every year
There's
is
fewer.
not a large turnover or
Well,
something.
once they're hired, once they are able to earn the vacation days after that first year. So this is just for the people who are new.
Yeah.
So basically, when they can earn 5 days is when they come on, and they can earn 10 over total of the first year, without being.
I understand. I just want to know what's sort of a dollar sign attached to these vacation days. Eventually, that's still,
So
money,
maybe I'll
right?
give it a crack, Ife. So the end, the dollar sign, there is no differential. It's you kind of pay me now or pay me later. So either way, the district is going to have to pay for those days. Because currently, those employees, if they didn't get it up front, those 10 days, like it is this, they get it at the end of their career. When we leave, we owe them those 10 days. Right now, it is just like, take those 10 days. So in the future, we won't have a payout at the end. We have a small part of our budget that allows us to pay for that payout for those
Right,
days.
right.
So
That
there's
part
no
is-
net loss or gain. It's a pay me now or pay me later.
We don't have the sub-issue like teaching faculty. When they take vacation, we may have to hire a sub, right? This probably doesn't involve
Right,
sub.
a lot of these 12-month staff typically aren't getting subs
Right.
when they're out for a day or,
Okay,
or
fine.
a week even.
So that is also eliminated. All right, fine,
Yep.
thank you.
Thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstained? Objections? Great. Stipulation of settlement. Be it resolved that the superintendent of school hereby authorizes and empowers to execute this stipulation of settlement signed on November 20th, 2023 by the parent of student, whatever, 75, I don't have to read that. And the superintendent is further authorized to take action necessary to execute the terms of this agreement.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstained, objections? All right, we move on to public comments. All right, let me read this really quick. All speakers will properly identify themselves. A maximum of 30-minute period, limited to 3 minutes per speaker. No district employees or students may be commented upon or identified by name or situation. Questions asked by the public will be referred to the appropriate staff member for reply at a later date and time. Questions requiring investigations will be referred to the superintendent for consideration at a later response. All written statements shall be given to the district clerk.
Hi, I'm Sharon Page. I wanted to, first of all, just commend the students who spoke tonight. It made me really excited for the middle years program and the IB program, and I hope there are more information sessions about those. But I also wanted to address the Make Amends policy at SIS. This policy has been used as a restorative practice appropriately when students engage in behavior that's harmful or inappropriate or unkind to others. And to make amends obviously means to work on repairing harm and restoring relationships. I've also learned, though, that this policy is being used to take recess time away from students for missing or incomplete homework assignments, which as a parent and as an educator I feel is highly inappropriate and unnecessarily punitive. I don't believe there was anything about missing recess for homework assignments in the code of conduct my SIS students signed at the beginning of this school year. Likewise, there's no mention of this in the school's official code of conduct policies on the website that I've been able to find. Further, according to the district health and wellness policy, this is a quote, "The performance or withholding of physical activity shall not be used as a form of discipline or punishment." And it goes on to say that the district shall schedule a daily allotment of recess time for elementary students. To me, this is very clear that punishing students as young as 7 for missing homework assignments goes against district policy. I hope that this can be clarified across the district and that we can ensure that students are given their full recess time. Access to recess should be something that the district would consider having as a protected experience as a best practice. Students can and should be held accountable for homework, but it can be reinforced without impacting access to the physical and social benefits provided by recess. Multiple studies show that recess is just as essential for student growth and academic success. And in fact, even US News and World Report states that after recess, children are more attentive in class, perform better cognitively, and have fewer behavioral problems. This would, to me, mean that there would be fewer reasons for them to make amends if they're given full access to their recess. So I hope you'll look into this and consider it. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Which grade is he talking about?
SIS.
All right, we're going to board member comments.
We got one more.
No, we got one more.
In terms of the Mark Bayer, high school principal, not going to make a long comment other than when you're talking about looking at the professional learning that takes place at the secondary level, particularly around the IB diploma program, because I think that's the one that's, there's questions about that. I want to remind everyone that teachers who teach at the high school IB classes also teach other classes, and that professional learning that they're doing, which is based on effective research-based pedagogical instructional strategies, has a carryover to all the other classes. So it's not a number that you can put solely to the IB program, because it does impact students in many other classes, as again, those are effective instructional strategies. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Great, thank you. Anybody else?
Scott Stuber. I just want to say that it was anecdotal at best to judge a program based on a handful of students that came in to speak about it. That would be like, you know, you're not going to get a kid to come up publicly and go against his teacher or his boss. You know, you're only going to get a positive comment. I didn't think that Dr. Chang's question.
Don't reference my name or situation.
I didn't feel that one of the board members' question regarding where the students are was ever answered. And I think that's important in order to track students to see if they're actually getting better, because I feel like if we're pushing this program so hard, it's an indictment against the programs that have been in place for all these years. So if our students were really falling, and we're trying to institute a new program in order to bring the students back up, that's one thing. But it also means that we weren't doing a very good job before, which no one ever admitted to. I think that our AP program and all the programs that we've had in New York State all these years worked very well for a long time, and all of a sudden, for like the example of math, we decided to change the math system and threw everybody out of whack. It didn't go over well. We were telling students not to memorize their multiplication tables and stuff like that, and then, you know, a couple of years later, then it was okay again to memorize them. I don't think that ever worked out well for the students. So as far as the IB program goes as well. If it's the only diploma that is accepted internationally, that also means that there is a criteria to be accepted internationally. So who decides that criteria? If that criteria is not based in the United States, then it's not a program that should be instituted in the United States, whether everyone loves it or not. The criteria should be based solely from citizenry of the United States. That's all I have to say about that. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to board comment.
I'm always first. No, I want to thank the teachers that were here to speak about the reading program. It was nice to get a more in-depth view. When we were there for the site visit, it was just, we were getting ushered around a couple minutes in each room. So having to explain it in more detail and, get a better idea of just what we saw for the short span was, was very informative and helpful for us. So, it looks good for how the kids are moving through those tiers and getting the help they need. And good luck to the football team next week.
No, I agree with Dom. I won't get into too much because I thank those teachers for the time, and I thought that was terrific what they were able to demonstrate to us. I will apologize for earlier, and then in the first public comment, I did not mean to get into a discussion. So I do apologize for inappropriately going too far at that time. I will say, as a board member, I'm always trying to learn. I'm always trying to have an open mind and listen to concerns. And I think what I had wanted to ask earlier, and I think what's always the case whenever anyone brings something to us, whether it's a concern or a praise or a criticism, it's, where's the evidence behind that? Sometimes there are things that are said that I know from the training we've gone through, and we've seen how our curriculum is built and where the curriculum comes from, what IB is and what IB isn't. And when I hear accusations that IB is requiring us to have an un-American education, I just don't know where that comes from. And if there's some secret that's not being shared with us, I need to see the evidence of that. And that's kind of what I'm asking for, because I haven't seen that anywhere. I see where the curriculum is built. It's built in New York State. It's built locally in what we value here in Somers. The IB framework is about how to teach, how to engage our kids, not what they are supposed to be thinking. And I think that's been borne out with a lot of evidence. I would encourage anyone who has concerns over that to join in on some of the presentations and the learning opportunities to share what the IB program is and isn't. And not only IB, it's all of the curriculum, all of the programs that we have in here. I know the district, and I really appreciate it. It continues to make a lot of efforts to have community events where they can have these educational experiences about what the district is doing and ask questions and try to learn and understand more. So that's really what I wanted to get at is as a board member, we're up here trying to be open-minded, but still think critically, and it's the evidence that we need behind these decisions that we make. Thank you.
I think this program is important. I don't want to get into this pro and con debate because education is difficult to really make that kind of a judgment. As Dr. Blanche said, it's a long-term affair, and you can't just take one semester or a couple of years data to say something. However, I do want to ask more information and correlate or accumulate evidence that we are investing in the right direction. So the first thing I think we do want to get into a little more detail about the expense in a timeline. Okay, that's hopefully get into the budget process. We'll get into that. The costs will come and hopefully decrease, and we will see benefit that it comes up and with some kind of evidence. When I ask for that evidence, I know people don't like to have tests, whether regional tests or any tests. But however, we should have some kind of yardstick that ourselves can generate. I don't care how we do that, but it has to make it convincing. For example, we say we do vocabulary work, and can we say that we pick a third grader and okay, do you know 150 vocabulary or 300 or 400 or 500? We've got to have some kind of a number that makes people so feel that, yes, the kids are learning. You might say, well, just memorizing vocabulary is not enough. It's got to be, comprehension, dictation, or understanding, and so on. Sure, then we have to come up with some measure ourselves so that we could indicate, yes, the program over the years is improving. We know that the society is changing. We know that the parents are putting a lot of investment into education, and the kids are learning on their own, on their device. As teacher said, graphics become captive. You get into this graphics stuff. Yes, because all the video programs, all these things are graphics, so people don't use words anymore. Okay, we have this message that's short. You can say, well, TikTok language or a Twitter language. I mean, things are changing. So if our educational system do not react to the society change and do not set some our own standard to make measurable results, then we are really going to waste our dollars. Okay, I mean, the society changing will sort of overwhelm us. So my discussion is not to argue about, I know our teachers are dedicated. I know many good teachers in our school district. I just want to know that somehow the experience, the effort we put in should show some results that presentable in a way that is very convincing, okay? Sometimes, the students' presentation, appreciate your comment, but I think their comments are useful. Parents don't come to board meetings. They don't understand the program. Sometimes through, students, their presentation, their testimony probably will help the parents to understand, or at least, begin to understand the details of this program. So I think we should encourage students to come forward, and we should also encourage faculty to present a lot more information that pertaining to summer school. I don't really care about competing, ranking, and so on. I just want to see the summers year after year. We have some things that we could relate to. My problem as a board member on the board for 15 years, if anybody asks me, how do you know your school is getting better? I tell you, honestly, I have a hard time to show and tell people, yes, we're getting better. Dr. Blanch says, well, high school graduates is evidence and so on. But that is, not concrete in a sense, okay? I mean, every year we do have some students that are good, some are, but can we show statistically, how we progress? Our Somers pedagogy is really better than other schools. That's what I'm interested in, and hopefully we are, going to achieve that someday.
All right. Hey,
Okay,
I'm
that's
going to
my
hop in really quick just to correct some of that statement there. So the question came up earlier today about the reading, and what we're doing there, and that was the assessments on it. So we do have measures on that. We have put together as a board a measure and a goal, and that's been presented to us 3 weeks ago. Someone.
I wasn't here. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
You were here. You were in that meeting where we went through that, right? And we have that data there. So we've also shown not only
What
the
data are you
internal-
talking about?
We have the Forward and Excellence report, right, where they've showed the numbers for that we have for reading and what they're tracking in each of the grade levels. They also have the state assessments. You should have that binder. If not, take that one. I'll give Amanda mine if you want that one, though. But you can take that
No,
home
I
with
have
you.
that, yeah.
We also showed that to the public in there, specific to reading, to show at the grade level what it's been doing and what that is. We have a target in there, what we're looking to try to move that needle to and what we're measuring, right? And
Yeah,
how
good.
we're actually making sure the investment in the reading is actually paying out, right? So let's not say that we don't have any measurements for that, because we do. We are looking at those, and that was specifically something as a board that we called out the end of last year, or before this school year started, right? So we are very much tracking that and measuring that to make sure that this improves. And I think
Yeah,
Ray and the
you're
teachers
speaking
and
about
everybody
1
knows.
year, 2 year data. I'm talking about
We're
over
looking,
the 15 years.
He
Yeah.
also shows the 4-year return or 5-year return on the state assessment piece of it with the
I'm
rating,
looking forward
right?
to see that.
See that it's right in here, right? And you sat in that meeting, so take a look at that again. But it has it going where it goes down, and we saw the trending down of the reading, right? And then we see the response from the teachers and the administration on that, and we saw that showed up last year,
And
right?
why we invested
So,
in the literacy.
Again,
associates.
let's not say that we don't have any data on that. We can ask for clarity on other data and things like that, but specific to reading and the conversation today, we have data. We are closely monitoring that as a board. All right, so that's definitely being measured. We don't have it, and we're not judging that based on the students that showed up here.
Okay,
All right.
any data?
So we have that data, so we'll discuss that. I'm going to let
We'll
others
discuss.
comment on that, on whatever other board member comment, go. Anybody else?
Do you want to go first, Heidi, or?
Yeah, so I was part of the same thing. I was, while you were talking, Ife, I took a minute to look up the report that we had gone over at the last meeting. And that was the whole part of why we put together this Forward and Excellence report. And it goes through everything, but one part of it, which we had looked at last month, and we all have access to, does show, is available for anybody in the community, anybody in the town, anybody in the state, if they want to look at it and see how our students are performing. And it's got the data over the past 5 years for grades 3 through 8 on standardized testing, and also for high school in regions for English. It's got math, it's got history, it's got, I think some of the science was in there too. And then it also shows participation in AP and IB exams. And, one of the things when we're talking about IB and benefits and, was there a problem we weren't talking about, the percentage of students participating in AP and IB exams that we have on the website goes back to 2020. But I remember from my earlier years on the board, our number of students was significantly less than that when we first started. So, one of the factors that school districts are often looked at is how many of their students are accessing rigorous, college preparatory education courses. And our numbers, I think the district acknowledged the fact that that number had been low. And implementing the IB program dramatically, like by double-digit percentage points, increased the number of students that are accessing higher level courses. And I think, a great way to hear it was from one of the students that talked tonight. And the biggest thing I had wanted to say tonight was a thank you to those students that showed up. As far as I know, they weren't required to be here. They came on their own volition to talk about something that they're passionate about. And to have a student speak up and talk about her vulnerabilities and academic challenges she had, and that she hadn't really thought that she would be on a course to take an AP level coursework was a valuable piece of information to share. And yes, it's anecdotal, but sometimes those anecdotal pieces, if you really want to know what does a program look like and its outcome, you have to look at the product, and the product is our kids. And so we have the statistics and the data on college admissions and where they're going and how they're performing on tests at the end. And then this adds to it their experiences. And we hear from our college kids. We as a board get information from our college kids, and I'm sure the administrators at the schools do too, on their feedback of, did Somers High School prepare them for what came next? So that's an important piece. So just a huge shout out for those students that took that time to come and be here when they didn't have to. That was a valuable piece, and I hope that people will listen to it and hear that feedback, in addition to all these concrete numbers based on assessments. And you can even look at them in comparison to where does Somers score in comparison to other school districts in the region. It's all right there on our website. Although when I just checked, I think the most recent report hadn't been added in there yet. So, but there's a link. I know there was a link from the newspaper too, so. But it's there. So, and thank you, because that was a kind of a responsive thing to wanting this information accessible to the community. So it's there, and we can all look at it. And I thank you to the administrators and all the professional staff that have worked to compile that information and get it there for us. And it's on us to make sure that we are looking at it.
Yes, so again, thank everybody for coming tonight. That was great. All the teachers, the kids. It's good to hear different experiences that different children have. I think maybe I could shed some light on why some people, not all, don't have a good taste in their mouth for the program, but a lot of people do. Obviously, kids are here, and it works well for some children, and some parents like it, some parents don't. Apparently there was a project, I believe in the middle school, 6th grade project, about global goals, superhero, unsustainable development goal for the UN, and what does it mean to be a global citizen? I think those are great questions, but I think at what point and at what grade level do we replace some of those words with American goal, superhero, an American Sustainable Development Goal, and what it means to be a great American. My children have been here, and I haven't seen a project like that yet. I'm hoping that maybe as they move on in grades, that does come about, but I believe, and I believe some other people in the community believe, that they should be learning how to be American first before they could be a great global citizen. So I think that's where some people have a little bit of disconnect with that type of program and how that's being pushed along. So that could be probably maybe one of the reasons why people see it in a different light. That's all I have.
Well, I was just going to piggyback off of what Nick and Heidi were saying, but also on top of the metrics that are in the Forward and Excellence report, there's also, children meeting benchmarks and everything. Each building has a level of goals that they're trying to achieve, and each grade level and each teacher, and it was all given to us at the beginning of the year. And it's important to remember that these are what the teams are looking at in order to administer those multi-tiered systems of support that we learned about tonight. And I can't thank the teachers enough for providing us their time and going over everything tonight for the community. It was great to see it in person when we walked through the classrooms, but they're not throwing these programs out blindly. They're looking at the data, they're looking at what the kids need, and they're adjusting accordingly, like adding foundations at a 3rd grade level, like bringing in the literacy consultant to improve upon the reading scores. And then we can look at that from year to year as we see, the numbers go up, which we actually did see the numbers go up quite a bit this year. So we do track students, and I think that's a misnomer to say we aren't. I also think it's important to have an understanding of what IB is and what it isn't, and what MYP is and what it isn't. MYP is not a curriculum. I want to just emphasize that. I think it's really important that we as a district and as a board, we shouldn't be promoting or endorsing or leaving unchecked disinformation. So I've been going to MYP information nights for the past, I guess, 5 years or so, as my kids were going through the school district before I joined the board. I will continue to educate myself on what our district's doing and how and I encourage everyone to do the same. We want to hear questions. We want to be able to have those answers, but I don't think it should be festering kind of in private bubbles in conversations on Facebook or anything else. Come to the coffees, come to the PTA meetings. Like, come to the source of information. All of these administrators and the teachers, what was provided tonight in this primer for the continuum, a lot of information was given to us, and it's out there, and you guys have to kind of come to the table too. So that we can have an understanding of what it is and what it isn't. And the last thing I was going to say is I think it would be great to look at the policy. Hopefully the policy committee will take a look at that. I agree. But I'm, a huge supporter of the IB program. I think it's been going great, and that encompasses the middle years program that's already in place at the middle school, as well as the middle years program that's ongoing in the creation at the high school now for 9 to 10. And then obviously if you choose to go for the IB diploma program or IB classes individually, I think it's been a great program. But what's beautiful about our school district is that we have many choices for learning and how we're going to go about it. Whether it's dual enrollment, whether it's you just want to take regular classes and graduate, whether it's AP, whether it's honors, whether it's embedded honors, whether it's whatever you want to take. There's different options for different kids, and I think that's what's important, because not every kid is going to learn the same way, and not every kid's going to have the same types of be able to have the same types of achievements. So there's a lot of choices here, and I think that's what should be emphasized.
Can I just ask one thing, just in response to the comments? I'm wondering if at some point, maybe when we're talking about social studies curriculum, we might be able to just kind of clarify a little bit. I think there's some confusion too about what's the New York State social studies curriculum versus what's an IB influence on curriculum. So maybe understanding where does global citizenship versus American history and emphasis fall in terms of when students are learning what, and what the New York State learning standards are for that.
That's true, because I know our curriculum maps are not always easy to find on our website, but
the New York State website, I think
the New York State website has them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, I'll try to be quick. I will be quick. Thank you again for the teachers. I know we got to thank them before we left, but again, thanks for them coming in and clarifying that much better than any one of us did and trying to articulate our visit from a couple weeks ago or a month ago or so. But I appreciate them taking their time out of their personal schedule to come in. The students as well. Again, even it's a subset of them, but again, it was brave for them to come up and in front of a bunch of adults to speak about something that was important to them. That's good to see always. Again, I was going to reiterate again my lack of email response. There's probably a couple people that I've missed responding to over the last couple of weeks. Again, not to go in my personal details, life got in the way, but my apologies on that. I will try to do better on that. On the IB side of it, again, I just want to shameless plug, reiterate, try to get to some of these, PTA events, MYP events, Mr. Bears, coffees, but go ahead, ask these questions, Pat, things like that. Those are great, feedback there as far as, coming up with that, but those are great discussion points, in those meetings there to talk about, how that stuff is articulated and what that perception is. And good luck to our football team and the state championship game coming up this Saturday. I think it's 3 o'clock up in Syracuse. So it's good to see. Hopefully there's a lot of people going on the bus.
I think we're up to 2 buses, I think, we're expecting. Yeah, so it's a success group going, yep.
Nice. I know my
And I apologize, Nick, I forgot to also plug Spelling Bee.
Yes.
Spelling Bee, big
the big musical is this weekend for the high school.
Friday, Saturday, yep.
Yep.
And Sunday.
And Sunday.
Yeah, well, Sunday too.
And Sunday. So you
It's a
can
matinee.
go to the football game and you can go to the spelling bee.
Since you said that, is there an age group that play is appropriate or not appropriate for, or is that for all ages?
I think typically they'll put something in the flyer that goes out, and then I don't know that play very well.
I would say for an older child, not young, if that helps.
Okay.
Or sometimes they do the Disney one early in the year for little guys and stuff.
They did that already.
Yeah, it's only to finish time. Yeah. Last piece I had, same thing. Again, thank you for the teachers and the board for taking the walk and visit there, certainly with that. we'll connect with the policy committee and kind of bring forth that policy that was spoken about this evening, so we'll have that conversation there. Then the last piece I had just was in relation to a little bit to the IB, but just some of the things that came up this evening and things. And so if you go to some of the trainings, they're, again, always learning things myself, but our IB kind of team pulled some stuff together, our teacher team. And so the first board of directors for the International Baccalaureate Program, you may recognize a few of these names. Marie Curie, John Dewey, I think I know that one, Albert Einstein, and Woodrow Wilson. So thinking about foundational people who were involved in the first board of directors in the International Baccalaureate Program, I think that's a pretty strong group. And as that continues to grow, and 1975 actually was the first school in the United States that was actually awarded as an international baccalaureate school, and it happened to be in the great state of New York. And so I thought that was pretty ironic they were there. And then again, this is just all up on the information I showed up on the board tonight and the community on the website. The states with the largest number of IB World schools in this order would be just the kind of top 5: California, Florida, Texas, Colorado, Virginia, and New York. And then Georgia's up there, and well as North Carolina, pretty close too. So you see it's a pretty wide area and a very diverse kind of part of our country. You can see where that weaves across. Again, that information's in there, but I think it does help kind of put a perspective forth where it is not the content. So you use IB here, you will not go to, and I was in Colorado for a while, you will not go to Colorado and see the same things taught there in 4th grade or 8th grade or 12th grade. That is the Colorado State standards, these are the New York State standards. The methodology in which they were approached it through with inquiry-based learning, having students think and reflect on their learning practices, being involved in these approaches to teaching and learning, good note-taking and researching, that's the commonality. Those states, though, those are the standards. That's the what that will come from the state. So, but again, this information is just all in those links, and the board has that as well in front of you. So Nancy, again, was kind enough to make those printouts. And again, hopefully we'll have good experience on Friday. Being from Syracuse, I was always disappointed, actually born in Buffalo, that they put a dome on that stadium, because we would have had some nice snow. They actually got a foot of snow today, and so I like the game in the snow. But it should be fun, and I think it'll be safe travels to the snow. I think we'll be kind of out of our way by travels on Friday and Saturday. And ahead of time, I also want to thank certainly those student athletes, but the coaches who do so much off the field, not just in that sport, but all of our sports. And even like we said, we talked about the play that's happening this weekend. There's teachers that are involved, like endless evenings and nights to help support kids on and off, behind the stage, that crew. So there's so much behind the scenes of everything that, oh, I see that, that's wonderful. And then tonight we got a snapshot of what we saw in those teachers. And I was like, wow. I get a sense of what it is, being a person, the things that are taking place behind the scenes to make, the things of our athletic program, our arts program, or our reading program tonight. It is yeoman's work, and it is, I think, really a well coordinated. If you didn't pick that up tonight, I hope you grab something else, but that's something that left with me, just the tight coordination. Thank you to Linda and the team over there, as well as Liz and the team over there. That was tight. That was a tight delivery system for our students, wherever they are in their learning experience, for the reading curriculum as the example tonight. So thank you, board.
All right. Let it be resolved that this special meeting / workshop of the Board of Education be adjourned.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain? Great.